Chapter 1. The full moon hung like a judge's gavel over the Silvercrest territory, its silver light pitiless and cold. Aria Winters stood in the center of the ceremonial circle, dirt beneath her bare feet, 300 pairs of eyes burning into her skin. 21 years old, and this was supposed to be her night, her ascension, her proof. Instead, it would be her execution. Shift. Alpha Marcus Blackwood's voice cut through the autumn air, sharp as broken glass. Aria closed her eyes, reached for that place inside where the wolf should be. That primal, powerful other self that made a person whole. The place she'd been reaching for since she was 13, when every other wolf in her generation had made their first transformation. Nothing. The void inside her yawned wider, a canyon of emptiness where instinct should roar. Her hands trembled. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the October chill. I said shift. Marcus stepped closer, his presence oppressive. He was everything an alpha should be, 6'4" of raw power, eyes like molten amber, dominance radiating from every pore. Behind him stood his beta, Damian Cross, and the pack's council of elders, their faces carved from stone. I'm trying, Aria whispered, hating how small her voice sounded. You've been trying for 8 years. Her father's voice joined the chorus of judgment. Thomas Winters stood among the crowd, his face twisted with shame. You're an embarrassment to this bloodline. The crowd murmured agreement. Aria recognized the voices. Pack members who'd watched her grow up, who'd trained alongside her, who'd promised her place was secure. Mara Jensen, her former best friend, whispered loudly enough to carry. I told you she was defective. Silence. The command from Alpha Marcus hit like a physical force, and the crowd instantly obeyed. But he wasn't defending her. When Aria opened her eyes, she found him studying her with an expression she couldn't read. Not quite disgust. Something sharper. More calculating. Aria Winters, Marcus announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the clearing. You have reached your 21st year without manifestation of your wolf. According to pack law, you are hereby stripped of full member status and relegated to Omega rank until such time as you prove your worth through service. Omega. The word hit like a slap. Omegas were the lowest servers, cleaners, those without power or voice. It was barely a step above exile. You will work in the pack house kitchens, the training grounds, and wherever else you are needed. You will eat last, speak only when spoken to, and be grateful we don't cast you out entirely. Aria's knees buckled. She caught herself, forced herself to stay standing. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. Do you accept this judgment? Marcus asked. What choice did she have? Exile meant certain death. A wolfless nobody couldn't survive alone in territory contested by rival packs, rogues, and things worse than wolves. I accept, she managed. Then it's done. Marcus turned away, dismissing her with the gesture. The crowd began to disperse, relief and satisfaction evident in their voices. The show was over. The weak link had been dealt with. Aria stood alone in the emptying circle, the ceremonial torches casting dancing shadows across her face. Her father left without a backward glance. Mara laughed with a cluster of young wolves near the tree line. Only one person remained watching her. Alpha Marcus stood at the edge of the clearing, half hidden in shadow. In the moonlight, his eyes seemed to glow, and they were fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Not with contempt, with something else, something that felt like recognition. Then he, too, turned and disappeared into the night. Aria sank to her knees in the dirt, alone under the judging moon. She'd lost everything tonight, her status, her family's pride, her future. She should have been crying, should have been broken. Instead, deep in that empty place where her wolf should be, something stirred. Not a howl, not yet, but a whisper that sounded like. Chapter 2. The pack house kitchen smelled like grease, herbs, and humiliation. Aria's hands were raw from scrubbing pots by 4 a.m, her back aching from hauling supplies, her pride shattered into pieces too small to count. 3 weeks had passed since the ceremony. 3 weeks of being invisible, of eating scraps after everyone else had finished, of sleeping in a converted storage room that barely fit a mattress. Move faster, Omega. Beta Damian's voice cut through the kitchen clatter. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a smirk playing at his lips. Alpha Marcus wants the training grounds prepped by noon. That means weapons cleaned, mats replaced, and water stations refilled. Aria bit back a retort. Omegas didn't talk back. Yes, Beta. And Aria? Damien's smirk widened. Try not to embarrass yourself in front of the warriors. Some of us are actually trying to train. He left before she could respond. Not that she would have. The kitchen staff barely looked at her as she dried her hands and headed out. Even among Omegas, she was other. At least they had wolves, even if weak ones. She had nothing. The November morning bit at her skin as she crossed the compound toward the training grounds. The Silvercrest territory sprawled across 200 acres of dense forest and cleared land in the Montana wilderness. The pack house itself was a sprawling lodge that housed unmated wolves and served as the pack's heart. Around it, family cabins dotted the landscape, smoke rising from chimneys in the cold dawn. Aria had grown up in one of those cabins. Now she couldn't even look at it without feeling her father's disappointment like a physical weight. The training grounds occupied a massive clearing ringed by ancient pines. Already, early morning warriors were gathering, the pack's fighters, enforcers, and those training for promotion. They moved with the casual grace of people who knew exactly what they were. Their wolves sleeping just beneath their skin, ready to emerge at a moment's notice. Aria envied them with an intensity that sometimes scared her. She was hauling training mats when she felt it. That prickling awareness that meant someone was watching. She turned to find Alpha Marcus standing at the edge of the grounds, arms crossed, observing the training session. And observing her. He'd been doing that. She'd noticed it over the past 3 weeks. Watching her when he thought she wouldn't notice. Never speaking to her. That would be beneath an Alpha's dignity, to address an Omega directly. But always present. Aware of her. It unnerved her. Omega. Mara's voice rang out, sharp with authority. Her former best friend had been promoted to training coordinator, a position that let her lord her power over those beneath her. Especially Aria. The weapons rack is filthy. Clean it. Now. Aria swallowed her pride, what little remained, and moved to comply. The weapons rack held practice swords, staffs, and training knives. She began wiping down each piece, her movements mechanical. Pathetic, someone muttered as they passed. Can't even shift, but they let her touch our weapons. Contamination risk, another voice agreed, followed by cruel laughter. Aria's hands tightened on the cloth. The old Aria, the one who'd had hope, who'd believed her wolf would come, would have argued, would have defended herself. This Aria knew better. She kept her head down and kept working. Pair up. Damien's voice boomed across the training ground. Combat drills. Shift and hold it for 30 minutes while sparring. Let's see who's actually been practicing. The warriors began to transform. Aria had seen it thousands of times, but it never stopped being beautiful. And never stopped hurting. Bodies rippling, reshaping, bones flowing like water into new configurations. Within seconds, the clearing filled with wolves of every shade, gray, black, brown, russet, white. Powerful bodies built for hunting, fighting, surviving. She forced herself to look away, to focus on her task. You. The single word froze her in place. She turned slowly to find Alpha Marcus standing 3 feet away. Up close, his presence was overwhelming. Not just his size, but something else. Something that made her wolf-empty soul ache with recognition it shouldn't feel. Alpha, she managed, dropping her gaze respectfully. Look at me. It was a command. She obeyed, meeting those amber eyes. This close, she could see flecks of gold in them, could smell his scent. Pine and smoke and something wild that made her heart race. You've been Omega for 3 weeks, Marcus said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. How much longer do you think you can last? The question caught her off guard. Was this a test? A cruelty? As long as necessary, Alpha. That's not an answer. His eyes narrowed, studying her with that same intense focus from the ceremony. Most wolves break within days at Omega rank. You haven't. Why? Because I have nowhere else to go, she thought. Because my father won't look at me, and my former friends mock me, and this is still better than dying alone in the woods. Because I'm Silvercrest, she said instead. This is my pack. My home. Something flickered in Marcus's expression. Surprise? Approval? It vanished too quickly to tell. Your home, he repeated. Even when it treats you like waste. Even then. The silence stretched between them, charged with something Aria couldn't name. Around them, wolves sparred and trained, but in this bubble of space, it felt like they were the only 2 people in the world. There's a rogue situation, Marcus said abruptly, his tone shifting to pure alpha authority. 3 rogues spotted near the eastern border yesterday. They killed a deer on our land, marked territory. Damien's taking a patrol out tonight to deal with it. Aria nodded, uncertain why he was telling her this. You'll go with them. Her head snapped up. Alpha, you want to prove your worth? Here's your chance. You'll carry supplies, set up camp, support the patrol. His eyes held hers. Consider it a test. A test she was almost certainly meant to fail. Rogues were dangerous. Wolves who'd left or been cast out of packs, who'd gone half-feral without the structure of pack bonds. Encounters with them often turned violent. I'll go, Aria said. I know you will. Marcus turned to leave, then paused. Aria, don't make me regret this. He walked away before she could respond, his powerful form cutting through the crowd of training wolves like a blade. Several pack members shot Aria dark looks. They'd seen the Alpha speaking to her, and they didn't like it. Mara appeared at her elbow, eyes flashing with jealousy and rage. What did he want? I'm going on patrol tonight. Eastern border. Mara's expression shifted from anger to something like satisfaction. The rogue patrol? Oh, this will be entertaining. Try not to get killed, Omega. Someone has to clean the kitchens. As Mara walked away, Aria stood among the training warriors, her heart pounding. A test, Marcus had called it, but it felt like something else. It felt like an opportunity. And deep in that empty place inside her, something stirred again, stronger this time. Not quite a voice, not quite a presence, but a certainty that whispered soon. Chapter 3. The patrol left at dusk, 7 wolves strong plus 1 human burden. Aria carried a pack twice her size, loaded with medical supplies, emergency rations, and camping gear. While the others moved in wolf form, sleek, powerful, tireless, she stumbled along on 2 legs, her human endurance laughable compared to their supernatural stamina. Beta Damien led the patrol, his massive gray wolf setting a punishing pace. Behind him ran 6 enforcers, including Mara in her russet wolf form. They'd traveled 5 miles into the forest when Damien finally called for a halt. The shift back was instant, warriors emerging from wolf form already reaching for the packs of clothes they'd carried. One of the advantages of the transformation. Anything held close during the shift came along for the ride. Set up here, Damien ordered, pointing to a clearing sheltered by a rocky outcropping. Omega, get the camp ready. We'll scout the perimeter. Aria dropped her pack gratefully, her shoulders screaming. As the warriors melted back into the forest, she began unpacking, tent, sleeping rolls, the portable cook stove. Her hands moved mechanically, muscle memory from hundreds of camping trips in her childhood, back when she'd still believed she belonged. She was setting up the last tent pole when she heard it, a low, warning growl from the forest's edge. Aria froze. Slowly, she turned toward the sound. 3 wolves emerged from the shadows, but these weren't Silvercrest. They were larger, rougher, their fur matted and their eyes holding an unhinged gleam that made her blood run cold. Rogues. And they were between her and the direction the patrol had gone. The largest, a scarred black male, shifted first, his transformation rough and painful looking. When he spoke, his voice rasped like broken gravel. Well, little human, all alone in the big bad woods. I'm not human, Aria said, forcing her voice steady. I'm Silvercrest Omega. The patrol is. We know where your patrol is, the rogue interrupted. We led them away. Mara was particularly easy to bait. Chase a rabbit and the dog follows. He grinned, showing too many teeth. Which leaves you here. Defenseless. Perfect. The other 2 rogues shifted as well. A rangy female with a torn ear and a younger male whose eyes held more madness than sense. They began to circle her, predators cornering prey. Aria's mind raced. She couldn't fight them, couldn't outrun them, couldn't shift. She was going to die in this clearing, torn apart by rogues, and her pack would probably consider it a fitting end for a defective Omega. Nothing to say? The scarred male stepped closer. No begging, no crying. Disappointing. If you kill me, Aria said carefully, Silvercrest will hunt you to extinction. Alpha Marcus doesn't tolerate rogues on his land, and he especially doesn't tolerate them killing pack members. Pack members? The female laughed, the sound brittle and wrong. You're Omega. You're nothing. Your Alpha won't waste resources on revenge for waste. She was probably right, but Aria had nothing else to try. The scarred male lunged. Aria dove sideways, her human reflexes pathetically slow. She felt claws rake across her shoulder, tearing fabric and skin. Pain blazed hot and immediate. She hit the ground hard, rolled, came up with the only weapon she'd grabbed, a tent pole, aluminum and pathetically fragile. "Fight!" the younger male howled, his eyes gleaming with bloodlust. "Make it fun." They were toying with her. They could kill her in seconds, but they wanted to play first, wanted to taste her fear. Aria's shoulder bled freely, hot blood soaking her shirt. The rogues circled closer. She gripped the tent pole, knowing it was useless, knowing she was going to die, but refusing to go down without. The roar that split the night wasn't human and wasn't quite wolf. It was something primal, something that made even the rogues freeze in instinctive terror. Alpha Marcus exploded into the clearing in wolf form, and Aria understood why alphas were feared. His wolf was enormous, easily twice the size of the rogues, his fur black as midnight, his eyes blazing with an amber fire that seemed to burn with its own light. Power radiated from him in waves that made the air itself feel heavy. He didn't hesitate, didn't warn. He simply attacked. The scarred male tried to shift back to wolf form, but Marcus was faster. Massive jaws closed around the rogue's throat, and there was a sickening crack. The body hit the ground and didn't move. The female rogue fled, shifting mid-leap. The younger male tried to follow, but Marcus was a black blur of lethal intent. Another leap, another kill. Two bodies cooling in the dirt, their blood dark in the moonlight. Marcus shifted back to human form in one fluid motion, and Aria's breath caught. She'd never seen him like this. Naked, powerful, his body carved from muscle and violence, his chest heaving with exertion. His eyes found hers immediately, blazing with something between rage and fear. "Are you hurt?" His voice was rough, more growl than speech. "My shoulder," Aria managed. "It's not deep." He crossed to her in 3 strides, his hands surprisingly gentle as he examined the claw marks. His touch sent electricity racing across her skin, and she gasped, not from pain, but from the sudden, overwhelming awareness of him. This close, his scent wrapped around her like a living thing, and that empty place inside her suddenly didn't feel quite so empty. "It's shallow," Marcus confirmed, his voice still rough. "You'll heal." His eyes met hers, and she saw something in them she'd never expected to see directed at her. Concern. Real, genuine concern. "What were you thinking, staying in camp alone?" "Damien ordered me to set up while they scouted." Marcus's expression darkened. "Damien is a fool." He stood, putting distance between them, though Aria could still feel the ghost of his touch on her skin. "The rogues used Mara as bait, drew the patrol 3 miles north. When I couldn't reach Damien through the pack link, I came myself." "You came for me?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. Marcus looked at her, and for a moment, the alpha mask slipped. She saw something vulnerable beneath, something that looked almost like longing. "I came for my pack member." But the way he said it, the way his eyes held hers, it felt like a lie. A careful, deliberate lie that they both knew wasn't true. Howls echoed through the forest, the patrol, finally returning. Within minutes, Damien burst into the clearing in wolf form, followed by the others. He shifted back, his eyes going wide at the sight of the dead rogues. "Alpha." Damien's shock was genuine. "We were pursuing, they led us." "I know what happened," Marcus cut him off, his voice cold as ice. "You left an Omega alone and undefended while chasing shadows. If I hadn't arrived when I did, Aria would be dead." The patrol members shifted back, their expressions ranging from guilt to indifference. Mara looked almost disappointed that Aria had survived. "Take the bodies," Marcus ordered. "Burn them at the border as a warning to any other rogues watching. Damien, we'll discuss your failure in leadership when we return." "Yes, Alpha." Damien's humiliation was evident, but he moved to obey. Marcus turned back to Aria, and she saw his expression soften fractionally. "Can you walk?" "Yes." "Then let's go home." He paused, then added quietly, "You did well. You didn't panic, didn't scream. Most wolves would have." It was the closest thing to praise she'd ever received from him, and it warmed something in her chest that had been frozen for weeks. As the patrol prepared to move out, Aria caught Marcus watching her again. But this time, when their eyes met, he didn't look away. And in his gaze, she saw something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. He saw her, not the Omega, not the defective wolf. Her. And deep inside, where nothing had lived for 21 years, something whispered, "Alpha." Chapter 4. The pack house was in chaos when they returned. Aria barely made it to her storage room before collapsing on her mattress, exhaustion and blood loss hitting her all at once. Her shoulder throbbed where the rogue's claws had torn through skin, but the pack doctor was reserved for full members. Omegas healed on their own or didn't heal at all. She was trying to clean the wound with water and a rag when someone knocked on her door. "Come in," she called, expecting another Omega with orders for tomorrow's tasks. Alpha Marcus filled the doorway instead. Aria scrambled to her feet, wincing as the movement pulled at her shoulder. "Alpha, sit down before you fall down," he ordered, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. He carried a medical kit, professional grade, the kind kept in the pack house clinic. "You don't need to. I said sit." The alpha command in his voice left no room for argument. Aria sank back onto the mattress, her heart pounding as Marcus crouched in front of her. This close, in her tiny room, his presence was overwhelming. He smelled like pine forest and smoke, like power and protection, and every instinct she didn't know she had was screaming at her to lean closer. "This will sting," Marcus warned, opening the kit and extracting antiseptic wipes. He wasn't gentle, couldn't be, given how deep the claws had cut, but his hands were steady and sure as he cleaned the wounds. Aria bit her lip to keep from making any sound, refusing to show weakness. "You can cry," Marcus said softly. "I've seen warriors twice your size weep from less." "I'm not weak," Aria insisted. "I know." He met her eyes, and the intensity there stole her breath. "That's the problem." Before she could ask what he meant, he returned to bandaging her shoulder, his fingers brushing her collarbone, her neck, sending shivers racing down her spine. The room felt too small, too warm, too charged with something she couldn't name. "Why did you really come tonight?" Aria asked quietly. "To the patrol." Marcus's hands stilled. For a long moment, he didn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "Because I knew Damien would fail you. Because I knew you were in danger. Because," he stopped, seemed to struggle with something internal, then finished. "Because I couldn't stay away." The confession hung between them like a living thing. "I don't understand," Aria whispered. "I'm Omega. I'm nothing. Why would you? You're not nothing." Marcus's voice turned fierce, and suddenly his hand was under her chin, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. "You've never been nothing. The pack is blind, but I see you, Aria. I've always seen you. Then why did you let them make me Omega?" The hurt in her voice was raw, real. "If you see me, why didn't you defend me at the ceremony?" "Because you needed to fall." His answer shocked her. "You needed to lose everything so you could discover what you really are. So you could stop looking for the wolf everyone expected and find the one that's actually there." "There is no wolf," Aria said bitterly. "I've been looking for 8 years. There's nothing inside me but emptiness." "Liar." The word was soft but absolute. "I can feel it, Aria. Every time I'm near you, I feel it. You have a wolf. She's just buried deeper than most." "You're wrong." "Am I?" Marcus leaned closer, so close she could feel his breath on her skin. "Then explain why your shoulder stopped bleeding the moment I touched you. Explain why your heartbeat matches mine. Explain why being near me makes that emptiness inside you feel less empty." Aria's breath caught because he was right. The pain in her shoulder had faded to a dull ache. Her heart was pounding in perfect rhythm with his. And that void inside her, the canyon where her wolf should be, was humming with an awareness that felt like recognition. "What's happening to me?" she whispered. "You're waking up." Marcus pulled back, putting distance between them again, and Aria felt the loss like a physical ache. "Your wolf is tied to mine, Aria. She always has been. But she couldn't emerge until you were strong enough to handle what that means." "I don't understand." "You will." Marcus stood, the clinical distance of an alpha settling back over his features like a mask. "There's a pack assembly tomorrow night. You'll attend. Omegas don't attend assemblies. This Omega does. That's an order." He moved to the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. "The wounds will be completely healed by morning. Don't let anyone see how fast they closed." "And Aria," he looked back at her, his amber eyes burning in the dim light. "What happened tonight? What's happening between us? It doesn't leave this room. Not yet. The pack isn't ready." "Ready for what?" But he was already gone, the door closing softly behind him, leaving Aria alone with 1,000 questions and the ghost of his touch still burning on her skin. She touched her shoulder where he'd bandaged it, and her fingers came away clean. No blood, no pain, just smooth skin that was already knitting back together with impossible speed. Wolves healed fast. It was one of their gifts. But Aria wasn't a wolf. Except, maybe she was. She closed her eyes and reached for that empty place inside her, the void she'd been carrying for 8 years. But it wasn't empty anymore. Something was there, coiled tight like a spring, waiting. Sleeping but not dead. Not gone. Waiting for something. Or someone. Alpha, that presence whispered, and Aria's eyes flew open in shock because the voice was hers but not hers. Familiar but foreign. Internal but other. Her wolf. After 21 years of silence, her wolf had spoken. And she'd called for Marcus. Aria didn't sleep that night. She lay on her mattress, her mind racing, her newly awakened wolf restless and curious inside her consciousness. It was like discovering she'd had a roommate for her entire life and never known it. A presence that was separate but also intimately her, that had opinions and desires and a will of its own. Why now? Aria asked the wolf silently. Why after all this time? The answer came not in words but in feelings, images. Marcus's face. His scent. The way her body had responded to his touch with a recognition that bypassed thought entirely. The wolf showed her the truth she'd been too human to see. She wasn't defective. She was dormant, waiting for the one thing that could wake her. Her mate. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Alpha Marcus Blackwood. The most powerful wolf in Silvercrest, the alpha who could have any female in the pack, who was destined to mate with someone strong and worthy, was her mate. The bond she'd felt tonight, that electric connection, the way her wounds had healed under his touch. It was the mate bond trying to form. But that was impossible. Mates were chosen by the moon goddess, by fate, by something beyond conscious control. Alphas mated with strong she-wolves, with Lunas who could stand beside them as equals. Not with Omegas. Not with defective wolves who couldn't shift. Can shift, her wolf corrected, smug and certain. We'll shift. When he calls. When we're ready. When will that be? Aria whispered aloud to the darkness. The wolf didn't answer, but Aria felt her certainty like a stone in her chest. Soon. It would be soon. She finally dozed off near dawn, her dreams filled with amber eyes and the scent of pine forests, with a black wolf twice the size of normal and a destiny she was terrified to claim. When she woke 3 hours later to begin her Omega duties, her shoulder bore no trace of the previous night's wounds. Just smooth, unmarked skin that told a story she couldn't yet share. And deep inside, her wolf waited, patient, knowing, and utterly certain of what was coming. The assembly was tonight. Whatever Marcus had planned, whatever truth he was ready to reveal, Aria's entire world was about to change. Again. Chapter 5. The great hall thrummed with tension. Aria stood at the back, pressed against the wall where Omegas belonged. Seen but not heard, present but not participating. The entire pack had gathered, over 300 wolves filling the massive space. Torches blazed in iron sconces, casting dancing shadows across timber walls decorated with the pack's history. Tapestries depicting great hunts, treaties, battles won and lost. At the front, on a raised platform, sat Alpha Marcus in his formal seat of authority. To his right stood Beta Damien, still bearing the shame of last night's failure. To his left, the Council of Elders, 7 ancient wolves whose combined age exceeded 4 centuries. Aria's father was among them. He hadn't looked at her once. The assembly is called to order, Marcus announced, his voice carrying effortlessly across the crowd. In the torchlight, he looked every inch the alpha, powerful, commanding, untouchable. Nothing like the man who'd bandaged her wounds with gentle hands just hours ago. We gather tonight to address several matters of pack security and future planning. The crowd settled, attentive. Aria tried to make herself smaller, invisible. Whatever Marcus had planned, she wished he'd warned her with more than a cryptic command to attend. First, Marcus continued, the rogue situation. As of last night, 3 rogues who dared to mark our territory and threaten our pack have been eliminated. Let this serve as warning to any others watching. Silvercrest does not tolerate trespassers. Murmurs of approval rippled through the assembly. Beside Marcus, Damien shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew the Alpha himself had done the killing, making the Beta's incompetence even more glaring. Second, Marcus said, his tone shifting, growing harder. We need to discuss weakness. The word hung in the air like a blade. Aria's stomach tightened. 4 generations, Silvercrest has prided itself on strength. On the power of our bloodlines, the dominance of our wolves, the superiority of our pack. Marcus stood, descending from the platform to walk among his people. But lately I've noticed something troubling. We've become arrogant. We've begun to confuse strength with cruelty, power with pride. He stopped in front of a group of young warriors, including Mara. We mock those who struggle, cast aside those who don't fit our narrow definition of worthy. And in doing so, we've become weak. Confused whispers spread through the crowd. This wasn't the speech anyone had expected. True strength, Marcus continued, his voice ringing with authority, isn't found in the ease of your shift or the size of your wolf. It's found in perseverance, in courage, in the refusal to break when everything and everyone tells you you're broken. His eyes found areas across the crowded hall, and her breath stopped. 3 weeks ago, we cast judgment on one of our own. We took a young woman who'd served this pack faithfully her entire life and stripped her of status because she didn't manifest her wolf on our timeline. We called her defective, weak, worthless. Marcus's voice grew cold. We were wrong. The hall erupted. Shocked voices, angry protests, confused questions all blending into chaos. Aria's heart hammered against her ribs. What was he doing? Silence. The Alpha command hit like a thunderclap, instantly quelling the noise. Marcus continued, his gaze still locked on Aria. Last night, that same woman faced 3 rogues alone. Unarmed. Defenseless. By all rights, she should have died. But she didn't panic. Didn't beg. She faced death with more courage than I've seen from warriors twice her size. She's still wolfless, someone shouted from the crowd. Courage doesn't change biology, doesn't it? Marcus turned to address the speaker. Tell me, Garrett, when was the last time you faced death without your wolf to protect you? When was the last time any of you had to rely on human courage alone? Silence. That's what I thought. Marcus moved back toward the platform, but instead of ascending, he held out his hand. Aria Winters, come here. Every eye in the hall turned to her. Aria felt her face flush, her legs turn to water. This was a nightmare. A public humiliation worse than the ceremony, because at least then she'd known what to expect. But the Alpha had given an order. Slowly, painfully aware of every whisper and stare, Aria made her way through the crowd. The sea of bodies parted for her, wolves stepping aside with expressions ranging from confusion to contempt. When she reached Marcus, he took her hand. His grip was warm, solid, anchoring. Show them your shoulder. Alpha, that's an order. Aria's hands shook as she pulled down the collar of her shirt, revealing the smooth, unmarked skin where the rogue's claws had torn through her flesh just 12 hours ago. The crowd gasped. Even wolves didn't heal that fast. Such wounds should have taken at least 2 days to close completely. Impossible, Elder Sophia breathed. She's human. She can't. She's not human. Marcus's voice cut through the rising noise. She never was. Her wolf has been dormant, yes. But dormant is not dead. And last night, in my presence, her wolf began to wake. The implications of that statement hit the crowd like a bomb. Wolves awakening in the presence of another wolf could mean only one thing: a mate bond. And the fact that it was the Alpha's presence. You can't be suggesting. Aria's father stood, his face pale. An Alpha cannot mate with an Omega. It's unheard of. It would weaken the entire pack structure. Would it? Marcus challenged. Or would it prove that strength comes from unexpected places? That the moon goddess chooses mates for reasons beyond our limited understanding of hierarchy? This is madness. Beta Damien stepped forward, his expression thunderous. Alpha Marcus, with respect, you cannot seriously be considering claiming her as your mate. She hasn't even shifted yet. She could be defective still, and you'd be bound to her for life. Marcus's eyes flashed dangerously. Are you questioning my judgment, Beta? Damien faltered. I'm concerned for the pack's well-being. Then concern yourself with this. Marcus pulled Aria closer, his hand still gripping hers. The mate bond is sacred, chosen by forces greater than us. If the moon goddess has designated Aria as my mate, then she has her reasons. And I, for one, trust her wisdom over your prejudice. The hall exploded into chaos again, some voices raised in support, more in protest. Aria stood at the center of the storm, her hand locked in Marcus's, her mind reeling. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Yes, her wolf whispered, smug and certain. Finally. Prove it, a voice rang out. Mara pushed through the crowd, her eyes blazing with jealousy and rage. If she's really your mate, if she really has a wolf, make her shift. Right here. Right now. Let us all see this miraculous awakening. The crowd took up the challenge, voices rising. Shift. 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 Aria felt the blood drain from her face. She couldn't shift. Not yet. Her wolf was barely awake, still weak, still learning. "I can't," she whispered to Marcus. "I'm not ready." "Yes, you are." Marcus turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders, his eyes burning into hers. "Your wolf knows me, Aria. She's been waiting for me. All you have to do is stop fighting her. Stop trying to force it. Just let go." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do." His voice dropped, became intimate despite the hundreds of eyes watching. "Feel me. Feel the bond. Let it guide you." Aria closed her eyes, tears of frustration and fear streaming down her face. The crowd's chanting grew louder. "Shift! Shift! Shift!" They wanted her to fail. Wanted proof she was still defective. Wanted justification for their cruelty. And suddenly she was furious. Furious at the pack for casting her aside. Furious at her father for his shame. Furious at every person who'd made her feel less than broken wrong. The rage built inside her like a wildfire, and her wolf rose to meet it with a howl of pure, primal fury. Enough. The voice that roared through her mind was hers and not hers, ancient and young, human and animal. Power flooded her veins like molten gold. Every cell in her body ignited with sensation, painful, excruciating, and absolutely right. Her bones began to crack. Aria screamed, but the sound transformed mid-breath into a howl. Her body folded, reshaped, broke apart, and reformed. She felt Marcus's hand steadying her, felt his power pouring into her through the incomplete mate bond, giving her strength. And then it was done. Aria stood on 4 legs instead of 2. Her senses exploded into hypersensitivity. She could smell every individual person in the hall, could hear heartbeats like drums, could see in the torchlit darkness with perfect clarity. She was lower to the ground, but felt taller than mountains. Powerful, complete, alive. The hall had gone utterly silent. Aria turned her head and caught sight of her reflection in a polished shield hanging on the wall. The wolf staring back at her was unlike anything she'd seen in the pack. Her fur was pure silver, so pale it seemed to glow in the torchlight. Her eyes were no longer brown but violet, a color that didn't exist in natural wolves. She was smaller than the warrior wolves but perfectly proportioned, built for speed and grace rather than brute strength. She was beautiful. "A silver wolf," Elder Sophia whispered, her ancient voice filled with awe. "Blessed moon goddess." "The prophecy." "What prophecy?" Marcus demanded, still standing protectively beside Aria's wolf form. The elder's eyes were wide, distant, seeing something beyond the present moment. The silver wolf of legend. Born of shame, crowned in moonlight, destined to stand beside the strongest alpha and bring change to all packs. She focused on Aria, and there was reverence in her gaze. "We thought it was a myth, a story to comfort weak pups. But you're real." Aria shifted back, and the transformation was easier this time, her body remembering the path. She stood on 2 legs, naked but unashamed, her silver hair falling around her shoulders where it had been brown before. Everything had changed. She had changed. Marcus immediately moved to shield her from the crowd's view, removing his shirt and wrapping it around her. "The assembly is dismissed," he announced, his voice brooking no argument. "We'll reconvene tomorrow after everyone has had time to process what they've witnessed." But as the pack slowly filed out, their whispers and stunned expressions told Aria that everything had changed. She wasn't the defective Omega anymore. She wasn't even fully Silvercrest anymore. She was something other, something prophesied, something that scared and awed them in equal measure. And she was Marcus's mate. As the hall emptied, Marcus pulled her close, and Aria felt the mate bond snap into place fully. A golden thread connecting their souls, their wolves, their very essences. The sensation was overwhelming, his emotions flooding into her, hers into him, 2 becoming 1 while remaining 2. "What happens now?" Aria whispered against his chest. Marcus pressed his lips to her hair. Now everything changes." Chapter 6. Aria woke in the Alpha's quarters. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. The massive bedroom with its timber beams and stone fireplace, the enormous bed covered in furs and soft linens, the scent of pine and smoke that was purely Marcus. None of it seemed real. Then she moved, and every muscle in her body screamed in protest. Shifting for the first time had been like running a marathon while being struck by lightning. She was exhausted, sore, and starving. "Easy." Marcus's voice came from across the room. He sat in a leather chair by the window, watching her with those amber eyes. Morning sunlight streamed through the glass, illuminating him like a painting. Your body needs time to adjust. First shifts are always brutal. Aria sat up slowly, clutching the sheet to her chest. She was wearing one of his shirts, soft flannel that smelled like him. Her silver hair fell across her shoulders, still strange and new. How long was I asleep? 14 hours. It's almost noon. Marcus stood and moved to the bed, sitting on the edge. How do you feel? Like I was torn apart and put back together wrong. She managed a weak smile. But also right. More right than I've ever felt. That's the wolf settling in. It gets easier. His hand found hers, and the mate bond hummed between them. A living connection that let her feel his concern, his relief, his carefully controlled desire. We need to talk about what happened last night. The prophecy, Aria said quietly. Elder Sophia mentioned a prophecy. Do you know what she meant? Marcus nodded slowly. It's an old legend, older than Silvercrest itself. The Silver Wolf prophecy speaks of a wolf born without status, rejected by her pack, who awakens to become the mate of the strongest alpha. Together, they're supposed to bring about a new era, breaking old hierarchies, uniting fractured packs, changing the way wolves live. That's insane. I'm nobody. I can barely shift, and you expect me to. What? Reform werewolf society. I don't expect anything. Marcus squeezed her hand. But the pack does now. And so do the elders. You manifested as a silver wolf, Aria. That's not just rare, it's legendary. There hasn't been a recorded silver wolf in over 300 years. Aria felt the weight of expectations settling on her shoulders like a physical burden. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I. Marcus's smile was rueful. But here we are, fated mates. A prophecy unfolding. And about 300 wolves outside this door waiting to see what we do next. What do we do next? First, you eat. Then we train. Your wolf is awake but untrained. You need to learn control, learn to shift at will, learn to use your senses. He paused, his expression growing serious. And we need to complete the mating bond. Aria's breath caught. The mating bond required 3 things to be complete. The mark, the vow, and the consummation. The mark involved the alpha biting the junction of neck and shoulder, creating a permanent bond that would broadcast to every wolf that she was claimed. The vow was a formal ceremony before the pack. And the consummation. Heat flooded her face. I've never. I know. Marcus's thumb stroked over her knuckles, sending shivers up her arm. And there's no rush. But you should know that an incomplete bond leaves us both vulnerable. Other alphas might challenge my claim. Other wolves might try to harm you to weaken me. Once the bond is complete, you'll be under my protection in a way that makes you untouchable. And if I'm not ready, then we wait. His voice was firm, absolute. I won't force you, Aria. Not ever. The bond is sacred, but consent matters more. The relief that flooded through her was immediate. Whatever else he was, Marcus was honorable. Thank you. A knock at the door interrupted them. Enter, Marcus called. Beta Damien stepped in, his expression carefully neutral. Alpha, the council requests an audience. And there are visitors from neighboring packs. Marcus's jaw tightened. Already. Word travels fast when a silver wolf appears. Damien's eyes flicked to Aria, and she felt his resentment through the pack link. A faint connection she hadn't noticed before. He didn't like this. Didn't like her. Nightshade and Crimson Peak have sent representatives. They claim to want congratulations. Really, they want to see if the rumors are true. Tell them we'll receive them tonight at dinner. Marcus stood, authority settling over him like a cloak. And tell the council I'll meet with them in an hour. Aria needs time to recover first. Damien hesitated. Alpha, perhaps it would be better if the Omega, if she didn't attend the formal dinner. Until the bond is complete, other alphas might see her as available. Marcus's growl was low and dangerous. She's not available. She's mine. And her name is Aria, not the Omega. You do well to remember that, Beta. Damien's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Yes, Alpha. He left, closing the door with barely controlled force. He hates me, Aria said quietly. He hates that his prejudice was proven wrong. Marcus turned back to her. Damien believed in the old ways, strength through dominance, hierarchy above all. Your existence challenges everything he thought he knew. It scares him. Will he be a problem? Not if he values his position. Marcus's tone left no room for doubt. But there will be others. Wolves who preferred you powerless. who benefited from your Omega status. They'll resist this change. Aria thought of Mara, of her father, of dozens of pack members who'd mocked and dismissed her. What should I do? Be yourself. Be strong. Prove them wrong every single day. Marcus helped her stand, steadying her when her legs wobbled. But first, breakfast. Then we'll work on your shift control. By tonight, you need to be able to transform on command. That's impossible. I've shifted once. You have 14 hours and a mate bond to an alpha who's going to teach you everything he knows. Marcus's smile was wolfish. Trust me, Aria. By tonight, you're going to be magnificent. The next 6 hours were the hardest of Aria's life. Marcus took her to a private training clearing deep in pack territory, far from curious eyes. There, he pushed her to shift again and again, teaching her to embrace the transformation instead of fighting it. It's not about force, he explained after her third failed attempt left her gasping and frustrated. It's about surrender. Your wolf isn't separate from you, she is you. Stop trying to control her and start trying to merge with her. I don't understand the difference, Aria panted, sweat soaking her training clothes. Marcus shifted in one fluid motion, his enormous black wolf standing before her, amber eyes wise and patient. Then he shifted back. Watch. Don't think. Feel. He shifted again, and this time Aria reached out with that new sense the mate bond provided. She felt his mind open, felt him show her the process from the inside. It wasn't like forcing her body into a new shape. It was like stepping sideways, like opening a door inside herself and walking through. She tried again. This time the shift came easier. Bones flowed instead of breaking. Fur emerged like a sigh instead of a scream. Within seconds, she stood on 4 legs, her silver wolf form gleaming in the afternoon sun. Good, Marcus's voice rang in her mind. Another gift of the mate bond. Mind-to-mind communication when both were shifted. Now shift back. It took 7 more attempts before she could shift smoothly in both directions. By the time the sun began its descent toward the horizon, Aria could transform at will, though each shift still left her tired. That's enough for today, Marcus said, shifting back and pulling her exhausted human form into his arms. You did incredibly well. Most wolves take weeks to achieve what you did in hours. I have a good teacher, Aria murmured against his chest. The mate bond thrummed between them, stronger now after hours of working in tandem. She could feel his pride in her, his desire, his fierce protectiveness. And underneath it all, something deeper, love, growing like a seed planted in fertile soil. He felt it too. His arms tightened around her. We should go back. You need to eat, rest, and prepare for tonight. The visiting alphas. They'll test you. Subtly, but they'll test you. They want to know if you're strong enough to be my mate, if the prophecy is real, if Silvercrest has truly changed. Marcus tilted her chin up, his eyes serious. Show them no weakness, Aria. They smell fear like blood in water. What if I'm not ready? You are. You just don't know it yet. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, gentle despite his strength. But there's something that will make tonight easier. Something that will send a clear message to every wolf in that room that you're mine and mine alone. Aria's pulse quickened. The mark. Only if you're ready. Only if you want it. Marcus's voice was rough with restrained need. But yes, if you bear my mark when we face those alphas tonight, they won't dare question your place at my side. The mark. Permanent. Binding. A claim that couldn't be undone. Every wolf who saw it would know instantly that she belonged to Marcus Blackwood, that she was protected by the strongest alpha in the region. But it was also a promise, a commitment, the beginning of forever. Aria looked up into those amber eyes and felt her wolf rise up with absolute certainty. This was right. This was meant to be. Every moment of pain, every year of waiting had led to this. Yes, she whispered. I'm ready. Marcus's eyes flashed gold, his wolf surging close to the surface. Are you sure? Once I mark you. I'm sure. Aria tilted her head, exposing the curve of her neck. Mark me, Alpha. Make me yours. The growl that rumbled from Marcus's chest was pure possession. His hand slid into her silver hair, gripping gently. This will hurt. I know. He struck fast, shifting just his teeth, canines elongating into the partial shift that allowed for marking. They sank into the junction of her neck and shoulder, sharp and deep, claiming and sealing in one motion. Pain exploded through Aria, white-hot and absolute. But underneath the pain came something else, power. The mate bond, incomplete before, suddenly blazed into full existence. She felt Marcus in every cell of her body, felt his soul wrap around hers, felt two separate beings become one united whole. She gasped, and her wolf howled in triumph. Marcus held the bite for exactly 3 seconds, the sacred number, then released. His tongue laved over the wound, and Aria felt it begin to heal immediately, sealing into a permanent scar in the shape of his teeth. His mark, his claim. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing gold, his breathing ragged. "Mine," he growled, the word barely human. "Yours," Aria agreed, touching the mark with trembling fingers. Through the bond, she could feel everything he felt. The satisfaction of claiming his mate, the desire barely held in check, the fierce protectiveness that would now drive his every decision regarding her. And love. So much love it took her breath away. "Tonight," Marcus said, forcing control back into his voice, "when those alphas see my mark on you, they'll know. Silvercrest has changed. The silver wolf has risen. And anyone who threatens you threatens me." Aria smiled, feeling her own power settling into her bones, her wolf confident and strong now that she was fully claimed. Let them try. Chapter 7. The formal dining hall glittered with candlelight and tension. Aria stood beside Marcus at the entrance, acutely aware of every eye turning to assess her. She wore a dress borrowed from one of the pack's unmated females, deep silver silk that complemented her new coloring and fell to her ankles in elegant folds. Marcus had insisted on something formal, something that proclaimed her status. But the real proclamation was the mark on her neck, visible despite her attempts to position her hair. Every wolf in the room could see it, smell it, sense it through the complex web of pack bonds and territorial awareness that governed their world. She was claimed, marked, the alpha's mate. "Ready," Marcus murmured, his hand at the small of her back. "No," Aria admitted. "But let's do this anyway." His lips quirked in a small smile. "That's my Luna." Luna. The title sent a thrill through her. She wasn't officially Luna yet. That required the vow ceremony. But the marking had essentially claimed the position for her. Now she just had to prove she deserved it. They entered together, and the room fell silent. The dining hall was set for a formal packed dinner, with the high table on a raised dais and several long tables filling the rest of the space. At the high table sat the visiting alphas and their entourages. Aria recognized the Nightshade Alpha immediately. Cain Nightshade, a massive wolf with silver-streaked black hair and eyes like ice. Beside him sat an elegant female who must be his Luna. The Crimson Peak Alpha was younger, brasher. Rafe Crimson, all copper hair and predatory grace, his eyes tracking Aria like she was prey. Between them sat Silvercrest's Council of Elders, including Aria's father, who still wouldn't meet her gaze. Alpha Marcus. Cain stood, inclining his head in a gesture of respect between equals. "Thank you for receiving us on such short notice. The rumors demanded investigation." Alpha Cain. Alpha Rafe. "Welcome to Silvercrest." Marcus guided Aria to the center seats at the high table, the Alpha and Luna positions. "I trust your journey was pleasant." "Enlightening," Rafe drawled, his eyes never leaving Aria. "We heard whispers of a silver wolf. A prophecy fulfilled. A nobody Omega suddenly elevated to Luna status." His smile was sharp. "Forgive our curiosity, but such claims demand proof." "The proof stands before you," Marcus said coolly. "My mate, Aria. The silver wolf of legend." Aria felt the weight of their scrutiny like a physical thing. Cain's Luna, introduced as Elena, studied her with calculating intelligence. "The mark is fresh," Elena observed. "Barely a day old. Yet you've called a formal dinner, announced a Luna, all within hours of this girl's first shift." Her smile was polite ice. "Some might call that hasty. Some might call it destiny," Marcus countered. "The mate bond doesn't wait for convenience." "True," Cain agreed, finally turning his attention to Marcus. "But the mate bond also doesn't guarantee competence. A Luna must be strong enough to lead alongside her Alpha. What exactly qualifies this girl, who was Omega yesterday, to stand as Luna of Silvercrest?" The challenge hung in the air. Aria felt Marcus tense beside her, ready to defend her. But if she let him fight this battle, she'd be proving their point. That she was weak, that she needed protection, that she wasn't fit for the role. "I qualify," Aria said, her voice clear and steady. "Because the moon goddess chose me. Because my wolf emerged in the presence of my mate, as the legends foretold." Because I've survived what would have broken lesser wolves, and I've emerged stronger. Pretty words, Rafe said dismissively. But words are easy. Actions prove worth. Then let's discuss actions. Aria met his gaze directly, refusing to show fear. 3 nights ago, I faced 3 rogues alone. Unarmed. Human. By all rights, I should be dead. But I survived long enough for my alpha to arrive. That takes courage. Or luck, Elena suggested sweetly. Yesterday, I shifted for the first time. A transformation that typically takes weeks or months to master. This afternoon, I learned shift control in 6 hours. That takes strength and discipline. Aria leaned forward slightly. And tonight, I stand before visiting alphas who'd love nothing more than to see me fail, to prove Silvercrest made a mistake, to find weakness they can exploit. That takes nerve. Silence. Then Kane laughed, a genuine sound of surprise and respect. Well, the silver wolf has teeth. I approve. He raised his glass. To Luna Aria, may your reign be as bold as your tongue. The toast was grudging from Rafe, enthusiastic from Elena, but it was made. The first test passed. Dinner began. An elaborate affair with course after course of carefully prepared food. Aria ate mechanically, her attention divided between the political maneuvering happening around her and the pack members watching from the lower tables. She spotted Mara glaring from across the room, her hatred palpable. Damien sat with the enforcers, his expression unreadable. Her father still wouldn't look at her. So tell us, Elena said during the 3rd course, her voice carrying just enough to be heard by the nearby tables, about this prophecy. The silver wolf of legend. What exactly are you meant to accomplish? It was a trap. If Aria claimed too much, she'd sound arrogant. Too little, and she'd seem insignificant. I'm meant to bring change, Aria said carefully. To challenge the hierarchies that have governed pack life for centuries. To prove that strength comes in many forms, and that wolves should be judged by their character and courage rather than the circumstances of their birth. Noble goals, Kane observed. Also nearly impossible. The old ways exist for good reason. Hierarchy maintains order. Alphas lead because they're strongest. Omegas serve because they're weakest. You're suggesting we upend the entire social structure based on one anomalous wolf. I'm suggesting, Aria countered, that the social structure is already breaking. How many packs have we lost to rogue attacks because they were too rigid to adapt? How many strong wolves have been cast aside because they didn't fit traditional molds? How many potential leaders never got the chance because of accidents of birth? She thought of herself. 21 years of believing she was defective, of being treated as less than, when all along her wolf was simply waiting for the right catalyst. The world is changing, Aria continued, passion heating her voice. Human populations expanding, territories shrinking, old enemies forming new alliances. We can cling to tradition and weaken, or we can adapt and survive. The silver wolf represents the second path. Spoken like an idealist, Rafe said, but there was respect in his tone now. And what happens when reality collides with your ideals? When wolves refuse to accept change? When the old guard fights back? Then we fight, Marcus interjected, his hand finding areas under the table. But we fight together. Alpha and Luna. Tradition and change. The old ways that still serve us, combined with new thinking that will carry us forward. The conversation shifted to less contentious topics. Territory boundaries, trade agreements, the upcoming winter hunts. But Aria noticed the visiting alphas watching her throughout the meal, reassessing, calculating. She'd passed their first test. But she knew there would be more. As the dinner drew to a close, Elder Sophia stood. An unusual move that immediately commanded attention. If I may, the ancient wolf said, her voice carrying despite its age. I would speak of prophecy. Marcus nodded permission. The floor is yours, Elder. Sophia's eyes found Aria. 300 years ago, the last silver wolf walked among us. Her name was Lyra Moonshadow, and she united 7 warring packs into an alliance that lasted 5 generations. She did this not through force, but through wisdom, through the ability to see beyond surface differences to the common bonds that make us pack. The hall was utterly silent now. When she died, Sophia continued, she left a prophecy. She said that when the packs faced their greatest trial, when the old ways threatened to destroy us from within, another silver wolf would rise. This wolf would be born of shame, but crowned in moonlight. She would stand beside the strongest alpha, and together they would either lead us into a new era or watch us fall into darkness. Sophia's gaze moved to include Marcus. That time is now. Our greatest trial isn't rogues or territory disputes. It's the calcification of our traditions, the rigid hierarchies that waste potential and breed resentment. Alpha Marcus saw this. That's why the moon goddess chose him as mate to the silver wolf, because he has the strength to change and the wisdom to lead that change. She raised her glass. To Alpha Marcus and Luna Aria. May their bond be strong, their reign long, and their legacy one of transformation. This time, the toast was echoed throughout the hall, even by those who doubted, even by those who'd scorned her, because Elder Sophia had spoken, and her word carried the weight of 3 centuries of wisdom. As the assembly began to disperse, Cain approached them privately. "A word, Marcus?" They moved to a quieter corner, and Cain's expression grew serious. "You've made a bold move here, claiming an Omega as Luna, invoking prophecy, challenging tradition. It will make you enemies." "I know," Marcus said calmly. "Some of those enemies sit on the regional council. They won't accept this easily." Cain's eyes flicked to Aria. "They'll test you, both of you, and if you fail those tests, they'll use it as justification to question your leadership of Silvercrest." "Let them try," Aria said, her wolf rising close to the surface, making her eyes flash violet. "I've spent 21 years being tested. I'm still standing." Cain studied her for a long moment, then smiled. A real smile, not a political one. "I believe you are. And for what it's worth, you have Nightshade's support. Elena and I believe change is coming, whether the old wolves like it or not. Better to be on the right side of history." "And Crimson Peak?" Marcus asked. "Rafe will watch and wait. He's ambitious. He'll support whichever side benefits him most." Cain clasped Marcus's forearm in the traditional wolf greeting. "But tonight, you won a small victory. Use it wisely." After the visiting alphas and their entourages departed, Aria finally allowed herself to relax. The dining hall was emptying, pack members heading home or to their quarters. She was exhausted, drained by the political maneuvering and constant vigilance. "You were magnificent," Marcus murmured, pulling her close. Through the mate bond, she felt his pride, his love, his desire. "I was terrified," Aria admitted. "That's what made it magnificent. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it." He pressed a kiss to her mark, sending pleasure racing through her veins. "Come, you need rest. Tomorrow, we begin preparing for the Luna ceremony." "There's more," Aria groaned. Marcus laughed, the sound rich and warm. "Welcome to Alpha Politics, my love. There's always more." As they walked through the pack house toward the Alpha quarters. Toward their quarters now, Aria caught sight of her reflection in a polished window. Silver hair, violet eyes, a mark proclaiming her claimed and cherished. She barely recognized herself. But for the first time in her life, she liked what she saw. The outcast had become Luna. The broken had become whole. And this was only the beginning. Chapter 8. The Luna ceremony was scheduled for the next full moon, 7 days away. 7 days that felt more like 7 years. Aria woke before dawn on the second day, her body still adjusting to the demands of her new life. Marcus was already gone. Alphas rose with the sun. But he'd left a note on his pillow, training grounds. "Breakfast first. You'll need your strength." The warning made her nervous. She dressed in training clothes and made her way to the pack house dining hall. The space that had once terrified her, a place where she'd eaten scraps after everyone else finished, now parted around her like a river around stone. Pack members stepped aside, some with respect, others with barely concealed resentment. "Luna," they murmured as she passed. The title still felt foreign. At the high table, Elder Sophia waited with a plate of food already prepared. "Sit, child. We have much to discuss before your training begins." Aria obeyed, suddenly aware that this was more than a casual breakfast. What kind of training? The Luna trials. Sophia's ancient eyes were grave. Their tradition, tests that prove a Luna worthy of her position. Strength, wisdom, sacrifice, and vision. 4 trials over 6 days. You'll face each one alone. Marcus didn't mention trials, because he hoped to spare you. The trials are archaic, often brutal, but they're also law. Any pack member can invoke them if they question a Luna's fitness to lead. Sophia's expression darkened. Someone invoked them last night. Formally. Witnessed by the council. Aria's stomach dropped. "Who?" Beta Damien. "Of course. Damien had opposed her from the beginning, had been humiliated when Marcus chose her over pack tradition. This was his revenge, or his attempt to protect what he saw as proper hierarchy. Can I refuse? You can, but refusal means automatic forfeit of the Luna position. The mate bond would remain, but you'd have no authority, no voice in pack decisions. You'd be Marcus's mate in name only. Sophia leaned forward. Is that what you want? No. Aria's wolf surged forward, fierce and certain. I didn't survive being Omega just to be powerless again. If Damien wants trials, he'll get them. Sophia smiled, approval warming her weathered features. Good. Then let's discuss what you're facing. Over breakfast, the elder explained each trial in detail. The trial of strength would test physical prowess. Aria would face 3 warriors in combat, shifted, and must either defeat them or survive 3 minutes against each. It was scheduled for today. The trial of wisdom would present her with an impossible choice, a scenario where any decision caused harm, testing her judgment under pressure. Tomorrow, the trial of sacrifice would require her to give up something precious for the good of the pack. What that meant was never specified until the moment of testing. In 4 days, the trial of vision would force her into a spiritual journey through the pack's ancestral memories, confronting their history and proving she understood their future. The night before the full moon. That's insane, Aria said flatly. I've been a wolf for 2 days. How am I supposed to survive combat against trained warriors? By being smarter than them. By using your unique gifts. Sophia's eyes gleamed with knowing secrets. You're a silver wolf, Aria. That's not just rare coloring. It comes with abilities the common wolf doesn't possess. You need to discover them quickly. What kind of abilities? That's for you to learn. Every silver wolf manifests differently. Sophia stood, her ancient joints creaking. But I can tell you this. Lyra Moonshadow could sense emotions, could influence the wolves around her through sheer force of will. She was smaller than the warriors but faster, more agile, more unpredictable. She turned perceived weakness into tactical advantage. Aria absorbed this, her mind already racing through possibilities. When does the first trial begin? Noon. In the ceremonial arena. The entire pack will witness. Sophia placed a weathered hand on Aria's shoulder. Your father will be watching. Perhaps this is your chance to show him who you really are. The ceremonial arena was a natural amphitheater carved into the hillside, ringed by ancient stones that predated even the pack's founding. Hundreds of wolves gathered on the surrounding slopes, their voices a constant murmur of speculation and judgment. Aria stood in the center, dressed in minimal training gear, her silver hair braided back. Across from her, 3 warriors waited. Garrett, a massive brown wolf known for his crushing bite strength. Lynn, a sleek gray female whose speed was legendary, and Marcus's own patrol leader, Devon, whose tactical mind made him dangerous. Beta Damien stood at the arena's edge, his expression satisfied. The trial of strength, he announced, his voice carrying across the crowd. Luna Aria must face 3 warriors in shifted combat. She must either defeat each opponent or survive 3 minutes against them. Failure means forfeit of the Luna position. Do you accept these terms? I accept, Aria called back, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Then begin with the first challenger, Garrett of Silvercrest. The massive warrior shifted immediately, his brown wolf even larger than she'd expected. Easily twice her size, built like a tank. The crowd roared approval. Aria took a breath and reached for her wolf. The shift came easier now practiced. Within seconds, she stood on 4 legs, her silver fur gleaming in the noon sun. She was smaller than Garrett, smaller than most warriors. But Sophia's words echoed in her mind. Turn weakness into advantage. Garrett charged, a wall of muscle and fur bearing down on her. The crowd gasped. It looked like certain death. Aria waited until the last possible second, then dodged sideways with speed she didn't know she possessed. Garrett's momentum carried him past her, and she darted in, nipping at his exposed flank before dancing away. First blood to her. The crowd murmured surprise. Garrett snarled and turned, more cautious now. He began to circle, looking for an opening. Aria mirrored his movement, and as she focused on him, something strange happened. She could feel his emotions, his frustration, his determination, his growing respect. It wasn't the mate bond. This was something else. Something uniquely hers. Empathy, her wolf whispered. Use it. Aria focused harder, and suddenly she could sense Garrett's intentions a split second before he moved. When he lunged again, she was already moving, flowing around his attack like water. She couldn't overpower him, but she didn't need to. She just needed to survive. For 3 minutes, she danced and dodged, reading his emotions, predicting his moves, frustrating every attempt to pin her. When the time bell rang, she stood unscathed while Garrett panted heavily, unable to land a single solid hit. The crowd's reaction was mixed, approval from some, resentment from others. But Damien had to acknowledge it. First trial passed. Second challenger, Lynn of Silvercrest. Lynn shifted into a gray blur of pure speed. Where Garrett had been power, Lynn was velocity. She moved so fast Aria's eyes could barely track her. The female warrior circled, testing, then struck like lightning. Aria tried to dodge but wasn't fast enough. Lynn's teeth closed on her shoulder, not breaking skin but establishing dominance. The message was clear: I'm faster than you. Pain flared, and Aria's wolf responded with pure instinct. Power exploded from her. Not physical but emotional, a wave of commanding presence that made Lynn yelp and release her, stumbling back in confusion. Aria felt it too, shocked by what she'd just done. She'd projected dominance, had pushed her will against Lynn's, had forced submission without violence. It was an alpha ability, but she wasn't an alpha. She was a silver wolf, and apparently that came with its own brand of power. Lynn recovered and attacked again, but now Aria understood her gift better. She combined her empathic sensing with bursts of projected emotion. Not enough to control Lynn, but enough to make her hesitate, to disrupt her rhythm. And in those microseconds of hesitation, Aria struck. 3 minutes later, she'd landed hits on Lynn 5 times to Lynn's 3. Technical victory. The crowd was silent now, awed and uncertain. This wasn't how combat usually worked. Aria wasn't winning through strength or even speed. She was winning through something they'd never seen before. Third trial, Damien announced, his satisfaction fading into concern. Final challenger, Devon of Silvercrest. Devon shifted, and Aria's heart sank. The patrol leader was experienced, tactical, and he'd been watching her fight the first 2 challengers. He knew her tricks now. They circled each other, 2 predators assessing. Devon's wolf was rust-colored, scarred from years of service, his eyes calculating. Through her empathic sense, Aria felt his mind working, analyzing, strategizing. He wouldn't fall for the same tactics. He was already guarding his emotions, blocking her attempts to read him. And he was too experienced to be disrupted by her projected dominance. Devon attacked, and it was immediately clear he was on a different level. He feinted left, struck right, anticipated her dodge, and was already repositioning. Within 30 seconds, he had her pinned, his jaws at her throat. Aria could feel the 3-minute timer ticking. If she didn't escape, she'd spend the entire trial in submission hold, technical failure. Panic rose, and her wolf responded with something new. Instead of pushing emotion outward, she pulled, drawing on the mate bond with Marcus, pulling on his strength, his experience, his tactical knowledge. She felt him respond across the distance, felt his power flooding into her through their connection. With strength that wasn't entirely hers, Aria twisted, broke Devon's hold, and rolled away. The patrol leader's eyes widened in shock. She'd just displayed strength she shouldn't possess. Clever, Devon's voice rang in her mind. The pack link allowing shifted wolves to communicate. Using the alpha bond. But can you maintain it? He was right to question. The drain was enormous. She couldn't hold this borrowed strength for 3 minutes. But she didn't need 3 minutes. She needed to prove she deserved to be Luna. Aria shifted tactics. Instead of fighting Devon, she began to move with him, reading the patterns in his attacks, learning his rhythm. She stopped trying to win and started trying to understand. And slowly, she began to mirror his movements, to anticipate not through emotion reading, but through observation and adaptation. Devon noticed, and through the link, she felt his surprise shift to respect. "You're learning," he acknowledged. Mid-combat. Incredible. The final minute became less a fight and more a dance. Devon testing her, Aria adapting, both warriors pushing each other to excellence. When the bell rang, they separated, both breathing hard. "Well," Aria asked, "did I pass?" Devon shifted back to human form, a rare smile on his weathered face. "You passed the moment you stopped trying to beat me and started trying to learn from me. That's what a true Luna does. She learns, adapts, grows. Even in combat." The crowd erupted in cheers, genuine this time, even from those who doubted. Aria shifted back, exhausted but triumphant. Beta Damien stood at the arena's edge, his expression unreadable. The trial of strength is complete. Luna Aria has passed. He didn't sound happy about it. The trial of wisdom begins tomorrow at dawn. As the crowd began to disperse, Marcus appeared at Aria's side, pulling her into his arms. "I felt you pull on the bond," he murmured. "That was clever. Dangerous, but clever. I didn't know I could do that." "Neither did I. You're discovering abilities faster than I can track them." His pride flooded through the bond, warming her exhausted body. "But you need rest. Tomorrow will be harder." Aria looked across the arena and found her father in the crowd. For the first time since her ceremony of shame, Thomas Winters was looking at her. Really looking at her. And in his eyes, she saw something she'd thought lost forever: pride. He nodded once, a tiny gesture, then turned and walked away. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't acceptance. But it was acknowledgement. And for now, that was enough. Chapter 9. Aria didn't sleep that night. The trial of wisdom haunted her thoughts. Elder Sophia had been maddeningly vague about what it would entail. Only that she'd face an impossible choice, that any decision would cause harm, that her judgment would be tested before the entire pack. She was sitting by the window in the Alpha quarters, watching the pre-dawn darkness, when Marcus found her. "You should be resting," he said, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "Can't. My mind won't stop racing." Aria leaned into his warmth. "What if I fail tomorrow? What if I make the wrong choice and prove Damien right? That I'm not fit to be Luna? Then you'll still be my mate, and we'll figure out another path forward." Marcus tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "But you won't fail, Aria. I've seen you face death without flinching. You'll face this too. Combat I understand. But wisdom? Impossible choices? I'm 21 years old, Marcus. I've been a wolf for 3 days. What wisdom could I possibly have? More than you know." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Wisdom isn't about age or experience. It's about seeing clearly, choosing honestly, and accepting the consequences of your decisions. You've been doing that your entire life. You just didn't call it wisdom." A knock interrupted them. Devin entered, his expression grim. "Alpha, we have a problem." Marcus immediately shifted into alpha mode, his entire demeanor changing. "Report. There was an incident in the South Quarter tonight. 3 families woke to find their doors marked with rogue symbols. A warning or a threat. No one saw who did it." Devin's jaw tightened. "But there's more. One of the families is the Winters household." Aria's blood ran cold. "My father. He's safe. But someone is sending a message that those who support the new Luna put themselves at risk. Or someone's trying to intimidate wolves into opposing her," Marcus growled. "Gather the council. I want those families under guard immediately. And Devin, find out who did this." "Already on it, Alpha." Devin hesitated. "There's something else. One of the night patrol found tracks near the marked houses. Wolf tracks, but the scent was masked deliberately. Whoever did this is pack." The implications hit like a physical blow. Someone within Silvercrest was working against them, using rogue symbols to create fear and division. And they'd specifically targeted families connected to Aria. "The trial of wisdom begins in 2 hours, Marcus said quietly. This might not be coincidence. Aria understood immediately. Someone was sabotaging her, trying to shake her confidence before the trial. Or worse, trying to create a crisis she'd have to solve as part of the test itself. "I need to see my father," Aria said. "Aria, he needs to know I'm not afraid. That I won't let threats against him change who I am." She stood, resolve hardening in her chest. "And whoever did this needs to see that intimidation won't work." Marcus studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Devin will escort you. Be back before dawn." The Winters household looked the same as it had in Aria's childhood. A modest cabin on the pack's southern edge, smoke rising from the chimney, herb gardens sleeping under frost. But now, crude symbols were painted on the door in something dark and sticky. Rogue markers. Warnings of violence. Thomas Winters answered her knock, surprise flickering across his weathered face. "Aria. Dad." The word felt foreign after weeks of silence between them. "I heard what happened. I wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm fine." He glanced at the marked door, his expression hardening. "Just paint. It'll wash off. It's more than paint. It's a threat. I know what it is." Thomas finally met her eyes, and Aria saw the conflict there. Pride warring with old prejudice, love fighting fear. Is this what we have to look forward to? Your enemies becoming our enemies. The accusation stung, but Aria held her ground. My enemies were always your enemies, Dad. They're the wolves who would rather maintain unjust hierarchies than adapt and survive. The ones who'd rather paint threats on doors than face the future with courage. Thomas's jaw worked. You sound like your mother. It was the first time he'd mentioned her mother in years. The woman who died when Aria was young, whose memory had faded into silence and sorrow. Mom would have supported me, Aria said quietly. Your mother would have worried herself sick over you. But Thomas's voice had softened. She always believed you were special, that your wolf would come when it was meant to. I stopped believing that years ago. I was wrong. The admission hung between them, fragile and precious. I'm sorry, Thomas continued, the words clearly costing him. For the shame I showed you. For not defending you at the ceremony. He gestured helplessly. For being a coward when you needed a father. Tears burned Aria's eyes, but she blinked them back. I forgive you, but I need you to do something for me now. What? Believe in me. When I face the trial of wisdom this morning, when I make choices that others might question, believe that I'm doing my best, that I'm worthy of the Luna position, even if I make mistakes. She took his hand. I need at least one person in my family to have faith in me. Thomas squeezed her hand, his eyes glistening. You have it. You've always had it, even when I was too afraid to show it. It wasn't a full reconciliation. Years of hurt couldn't be erased in one conversation. But it was a beginning. As Aria left with Devon, she felt lighter despite the threat painted on her father's door. One battle won, even as another loomed. Dawn broke over the ceremonial arena, and Aria stood once again in its center. But this time, the space was arranged differently. 3 chairs sat in a line, each occupied by a pack member bound and gagged. An elderly woman Aria recognized as Elder Margaret, second only to Sophia in age. A young male warrior named Finn who'd recently been promoted, and a child, a girl no more than 10, tears streaming down her face. Aria's heart stopped. Beta Damien stepped forward, flanked by council members. The trial of wisdom, he announced. Luna Aria, before you sit 3 pack members. One is a traitor who marked the houses last night with rogue symbols, sowing fear and division. One is innocent, but has knowledge of who the traitor is and refuses to speak. One is completely innocent, knows nothing, and has been taken to force the guilty to reveal themselves. He let the information sink in. You must choose which is which, and you must pass judgment. Execute the traitor, spare the innocent. But choose wrong. His smile was cruel. And innocent blood is on your hands. You have 10 minutes to decide. Your judgment will prove whether you possess the wisdom to lead this pack. The crowd watched in horrified silence. This wasn't just a test. It was a nightmare scenario designed to be unwinnable. Aria approached the 3 prisoners, her mind racing. Elder Margaret stared at her with calm acceptance. Finn looked terrified. The child sobbed uncontrollably. Remove their gags, Aria ordered. If I'm to judge them, I'll hear their voices. Damien hesitated, then gestured to the guards. The gags were removed. Please, the child gasped immediately. Please, I don't know anything. I was sleeping and they took me in. Silence, Elder Margaret said, her voice firm despite her age. Child, be brave. The Luna will choose correctly. Will she? Finn's voice shook. I know who did it. I saw them. But if I speak, they'll kill my family. They told me they would. Aria's empathic sense flared to life. She could feel their emotions. The child's pure terror, Margaret's calm resignation, Finn's guilt and fear all tangled together. But emotions didn't prove guilt or innocence. Traitors could feel fear too. Innocent people could feel guilty. She walked behind them, studying the ropes that bound them. And there, on Finn's wrists, she noticed something. The rope was looser than the others, tied in a way that could be escaped with effort. As if whoever had bound him hadn't really wanted him restrained. Or as if he'd tied himself, her wolf whispered. Aria's mind worked faster. The child was obviously innocent. No one would use a child that way. But between Margaret and Finn, one was the traitor, one had knowledge but stayed silent out of fear. She reached out with her empathic sense, focusing harder than she ever had. Margaret's emotions were steady, sad but resolute. Finn's were chaotic, fear, yes, but underneath. Triumph? No, not triumph. Anticipation. He was waiting for something. Aria stepped back, and the pieces clicked into place. This wasn't just a trial. It was a trap. Finn wasn't a frightened witness, he was bait. If she executed him as the traitor, his family, that he claimed would be killed, would be outraged. If she freed him, he'd be positioned to cause more harm later. And Elder Margaret. Margaret was the true witness. The one who knew and stayed silent not from fear, but from strategy. She'd seen the traitor, but hadn't spoken because she was waiting to see if Aria was wise enough to figure it out herself. But none of that mattered right now, because the trial wasn't really about identifying the traitor. It was about what judgment Aria would pass when faced with impossible choices. "I've made my decision," Aria announced. The crowd leaned forward. "This trial is a farce, and I refuse to participate in it." Shocked gasps rippled through the assembly. Beta Damien's face reddened. "You don't have the option to refuse. Choose or forfeit your position." "No." Aria's voice rang with authority she was only beginning to understand. Aluna's wisdom isn't measured by her willingness to play cruel games. It's measured by her refusal to let others manipulate her into causing harm. She turned to face the crowd, her voice carrying. "Someone designed this trial to make me fail no matter what I chose. Execute the wrong person, and I'm a murderer. Execute the right person without proper evidence, and I've abandoned the principles of justice. Refuse to choose, and I'm weak." Her eyes found Damien. "But there's a fourth option. Recognize the manipulation and reject it entirely." "You're saying there is no traitor?" Damien challenged. "No. I'm saying the real traitor isn't sitting in one of these chairs. He's standing right in front of me." The crowd erupted. Damien's face went white, then red. "That's a baseless accusation." "Is it?" Aria walked toward him, her wolf rising close to the surface, her eyes flashing violet. "You invoked these trials. You designed this scenario. You're the one who's been undermining my position since the moment Marcus claimed me. And I'm betting when Devon investigates those rogue markings, he'll find they match your scent pattern, masked or not. You have no proof." "Actually," Devon's voice rang out as he emerged from the crowd. "I do. Fresh evidence, found an hour ago. Boot prints near the marked houses that match Beta Damien's personal boots. And traces of paint under his claws from an incomplete cleaning." He held up a sealed evidence bag. "The traitor was never in the chairs. You're right, Luna. He's been standing in front of us the entire time." The crowd's shock turned to rage. Damien backed away, his hand going to his belt, but he was surrounded by enforcers now, by pack members who'd trusted him and felt betrayed. "Why?" Marcus's voice was cold as death as he descended into the arena. "Why betray your own pack, Damien?" "Betray?" Damien laughed bitterly. "I was protecting it from her." He pointed at Aria. "She's an abomination. A nobody Omega who seduced our Alpha and now pretends to be some prophesied savior. She'll destroy everything we've built." "No," Marcus said quietly. "You were destroying everything we've built. And now you'll face pack judgment for it." As enforcers moved to restrain Damien, Marcus cut the prisoners free himself. The child ran, crying to her parents in the crowd. Finn collapsed, sobbing, genuinely innocent, just terrified. And Elder Margaret smiled at Aria with knowing approval. "Wisdom," the elder said softly, "is knowing when the game itself is wrong, and having the courage to refuse to play." Beta Damien was led away in chains, still shouting accusations and insults. The crowd was restless, shaken by the revelation that their own Beta had turned traitor. Marcus took Aria's hand, raising it high. "The trial of wisdom is complete. Luna Aria has proven that true wisdom lies not in making impossible choices, but in seeing through deception and choosing justice over manipulation." The cheers were deafening this time. Genuine. Aria had passed not by playing the game, but by refusing to let others define the terms of her test. As the crowd dispersed, Elder Sophia approached, her ancient eyes twinkling. "Well done, child. Lyra would have been proud. Was any of this trial actually tradition?" Aria asked, suddenly suspicious. Sophia's smile was mysterious. "The trial of wisdom takes many forms. Sometimes the trial is recognizing that the trial itself is the test." She walked away, leaving Aria more confused than before. Marcus pulled her close, his relief flooding through the mate bond. "You scared me for a moment there. I thought you were going to refuse and forfeit. I almost did. But then I realized, a Luna who can be manipulated into unjust executions isn't a Luna worth having." "2 trials down," Marcus murmured. 2 to go. And with Damien exposed, the path should be easier. But as Aria looked at the dispersing crowd, at the faces still filled with doubt and fear and uncertainty. She wondered if anything about this path would ever be easy. Somewhere in Silvercrest, there were still wolves who opposed her. Still pack members who'd rather cling to the old ways than embrace change. And in 4 days, she'd face the trial of sacrifice, the test everyone said was the hardest of all. Chapter 10. 4 days passed in a blur of preparation and political maneuvering. With Beta Damien imprisoned awaiting pack judgment, Marcus needed a new second-in-command. The pack was divided over who should fill the role. Traditionalists wanted another warrior. Progressives suggested Aria should serve as both Luna and Beta, and a growing faction proposed Devon as a compromise candidate. Aria stayed out of the politicking. She had her own preparation to focus on: the trial of sacrifice. Unlike the first 2 trials, this one came with no advance warning, no way to prepare. According to tradition, the Luna would be summoned at an unexpected moment and required to surrender something precious for the pack's good. What that meant was never specified. Previous Lunas had given up wealth, status, even family ties. The sacrifice had to be meaningful, personal, and immediate. Aria was in the training grounds, working on her combat forms with Marcus, when Elder Sophia appeared at the edge of the clearing. The old wolf's expression was grave. "It's time," Sophia said simply. Aria's heart lurched. Now. But the trial isn't scheduled until. The trial of sacrifice doesn't have a schedule. That's the point. Sophia gestured toward the pack house. The council is assembled. The pack is gathering. Come. Marcus squeezed Aria's hand. Whatever they ask, remember. You've already survived the impossible. You'll survive this too. But as Aria followed Sophia back to the ceremonial arena, the space that had become both her proving ground and her nightmare, she felt dread coiling in her stomach. Strength she could demonstrate. Wisdom she could exercise. But sacrifice, what did she have left to give? The arena was packed, even more crowded than the previous trials. The entire pack seemed to have turned out, their faces a mix of anticipation and pity. That last expression worried her most. Why did they pity her? The council sat in judgment seats at the arena's edge. Her father was among them now, having been elevated to replace Damien temporarily. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Luna Aria, Elder Sophia intoned formally. You have passed the trials of strength and wisdom. Now you face the most difficult test, the trial of sacrifice. A Luna must be willing to surrender what she cherishes most for the good of her pack. She must prove that she serves the many, not the self. Aria stood in the center of the arena, her hands clenched at her sides. I'm ready. Are you? Sophia's voice was almost sad. Then hear your choice. For weeks, tensions have been rising between Silvercrest and our southern neighbor, Ironpaw Pack. Their alpha, Magnus Ironpaw, claims we've been encroaching on their territory, stealing prey, showing disrespect. He's threatened war unless we make reparations. This was news to Aria. Marcus had mentioned border tensions, but nothing about threats of war. Alpha Magnus has made an offer, Sophia continued. He will forget all grievances, will pledge Ironpaw as an ally rather than enemy, will even provide warriors to help us against the growing rogue threat. In exchange, he asks for one thing: a political marriage to cement the alliance between our packs. Aria's blood turned to ice. No, they wouldn't. They couldn't. He asks for you, Aria Winters. The Silver Wolf. The Luna of Silvercrest. Sophia's voice was heavy with the weight of tradition. If you agree to dissolve your mate bond with Alpha Marcus and marry Magnus instead, you'll secure peace for Silvercrest. You'll prevent war, save lives, and prove your dedication to this pack above all personal desires. The arena spun. Aria felt Marcus through the mate bond. His rage, his horror, his absolute refusal. But this was her trial, not his. Her choice. That's not a sacrifice, Aria said, her voice shaking. That's extortion. It's both, Elder Margaret spoke up. And that's what makes it a true test. Will you sacrifice your happiness, your mate, your future for the good of your pack? Or will you choose love over duty? There has to be another way. There isn't. Sophia's expression was iron. Magnus has made his terms clear. You or war. Those are the only options. Aria looked at Marcus. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes blazed with fury. Through the bond, she felt him trying to reach her. Don't do this. We'll find another way. We'll fight if we have to. But could they? War meant death. Pack members killed, families destroyed, territory lost. And for what? So she could keep her mate bond? So she could be happy while others suffered? The trial of sacrifice demanded she choose the pack over herself. How long do I have to decide? Aria asked. You must choose now, Sophia said. Alpha Magnus awaits our answer. Every moment of delay pushes us closer to war. This was impossible. The mate bond couldn't be dissolved. It was a sacred connection, blessed by the moon goddess herself. Breaking it would destroy both partners, leave them hollow shells of who they'd been. And yet, the pack was asking her to do exactly that. To prove she was worthy of being Luna, by giving up the one thing that made her Luna in the first place. Aria closed her eyes, reaching deep inside herself, searching for an answer. Her wolf rose up, furious and certain no. Never. We don't surrender our mate. But the pack needed her to. I need to speak with Alpha Magnus, Aria said suddenly. Face to face. Before I make this choice. The council exchanged glances. That's highly irregular, Elder Margaret said. So is asking a Luna to dissolve her mate bond. Aria's voice strengthened. If Magnus wants me badly enough to threaten war, he can face me and make his case directly. I won't make this decision based on second-hand negotiations. Sophia studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. We'll arrange a meeting. Tomorrow at the border. You'll have your audience with Alpha Magnus. As the crowd began to disperse, murmuring about this unexpected development, Marcus pulled Aria aside. His hands framed her face, his eyes searching hers desperately. Tell me you're not actually considering this, he said roughly. I have to consider it. It's my trial. It's a trap. Can't you see that? Marcus's voice was raw. Someone is manipulating this. Magnus wouldn't suddenly demand a political marriage after weeks of minor border disputes. Someone convinced him to make this play specifically to tear us apart. Aria felt the truth of his words. This reeked of manipulation. But by who? Damien was imprisoned. Who else wanted her to fail badly enough to orchestrate this? Then I need to face Magnus and figure out what's really happening, Aria said. Because if someone is pulling strings, I want to know whose. And if it's real, if Magnus genuinely demands you as the price of peace. Aria met his eyes, and through the mate bond, she let him feel her certainty. Then I'll find a third option. Because I didn't survive being Omega, didn't discover my wolf, didn't pass 2 impossible trials just to lose you now. There's always another way. I just have to be smart enough to see it. Marcus pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. If we have to fight Ironpaw, we fight. I won't let you sacrifice yourself. And I won't let you sacrifice the pack for me. Aria kissed him softly. Trust me. I'll figure this out. The next morning, Aria rode to the border with an escort of 20 warriors, Marcus at her side. The boundary between Silvercrest and Ironpaw territory was marked by a wide creek that ran through neutral forest. On the opposite bank, an equal number of Ironpaw warriors waited, and in their center stood Alpha Magnus himself. He was older than Marcus, perhaps 40, with iron-gray hair and eyes like chips of flint. His wolf radiated dominance, though not as strongly as Marcus's. He looked across the creek at Aria with an expression she couldn't quite read. So, Magnus called across the water. You're the Silver Wolf, the one causing all this fuss. I'm Luna Aria of Silvercrest, Aria called back. And I'm here to understand why you'd threaten war over border disputes that could be resolved through standard negotiation. Magnus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Clever girl. You've already figured out something's wrong. Then tell me what. Come across the creek. We'll talk privately. Marcus's hand clamped on her arm. Absolutely not. That's Ironpaw territory. You'll be in his power. I'll be fine. Aria met Magnus' eyes across the water. Will I have safe passage, Alpha Magnus? Your word is Alpha. You have it, Magnus said solemnly. No harm will come to you on my land. Before Marcus could stop her, Aria shifted, the transformation easy now, natural, and leapt across the creek in her silver wolf form. She landed on Ironpaw territory and shifted back, facing Magnus with more confidence than she felt. Walk with me, Magnus said, turning to head into the forest. Aria followed, acutely aware of Marcus watching from across the creek, every muscle tense to intervene. When they were out of earshot, Magnus stopped and turned to face her. I don't want war with Silvercrest, and I don't actually want you as a mate. Relief and confusion warred in Aria's chest. Then why? Because someone asked me to make that demand. Someone with leverage. Magnus' expression was grim. 3 weeks ago, my daughter went missing. Vanished during a hunt. I've been searching frantically, but found nothing. Then 5 days ago, I received a message. A voice on a recording, altered beyond recognition, telling me my daughter is alive but captive. Aria's stomach dropped. The voice gave me instructions, Magnus continued. Make impossible demands of Silvercrest. Force the Silver Wolf to choose between her mate and her pack. Create chaos and division. If I refused, my daughter would be killed. If I succeeded, he pulled a photograph from his pocket. A young woman with Magnus' eyes, smiling at the camera. I'd get her back. Someone's using your daughter to manipulate you into destroying my mate bond, Aria said slowly. Someone who knew about the trial of sacrifice timing. Someone inside Silvercrest's inner circle. That's what I thought too. Magnus pocketed the photo. I don't know who, but they want you broken, Aria. They want Silvercrest weakened and in turmoil, and they're willing to use my daughter's life to achieve it. Aria's mind raced. Damien was imprisoned. But had he been working alone? Or was there someone else, someone higher up the chain, orchestrating everything? We need to find your daughter, Aria said. That's the only way to end this. I've been looking for 3 weeks with no success. You've been looking with Ironpaw Resources. Let Silvercrest help. 2 packs searching together will cover more ground. Aria met his eyes. And I have abilities. Gifts that come with being a silver wolf. I can sense emotions, track intentions. Maybe I can find her where others couldn't. Magnus studied her for a long moment. You'd help me? Even though I threatened your pack. You didn't threaten my pack. Someone did, using you as a weapon. Aria's jaw set. And I don't let people manipulate me or mine. So yes, I'll help. But we do this my way. She outlined her plan quickly. Magnus would publicly refuse his own demand, claiming he'd reconsidered after meeting her. It would buy them time to search without raising suspicions. Meanwhile, Aria would use her empathic abilities to track down anyone in Silvercrest who showed guilt or knowledge about the kidnapping. If we find your daughter, you expose whoever's behind this, Aria finished. And Silvercrest gets proof that these trials have been sabotaged from the beginning. And if we don't find her, Magnus asked quietly, then I'll help you search until we do. But I won't break my mate bond. Not for anyone. Magnus extended his hand. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, Silver Wolf. Why not both? Aria shook his hand. Do we have a deal? We do. But Aria, whoever's behind this is powerful and patient. They've been planning this for months, maybe longer. Damien's betrayal might have just been the opening move. Then we'll make our next move before they expect it. Aria turned to head back to the creek. And we'll show them exactly what happens when they threaten a Silver Wolf's pack. As they returned to the border, Aria felt pieces clicking into place. This wasn't just about her trials. It was about something bigger. A conspiracy to destabilize Silvercrest, to prevent the prophecy from coming true, to stop the change that a Silver Wolf represented. Someone was very afraid of what she might accomplish. And they should be, because Aria Winters had been underestimated her entire life. She'd learned to turn weakness into strength, to find solutions where others saw only impossible choices. The trial of sacrifice wasn't over, but she'd found her answer. She wouldn't sacrifice her mate bond. She'd sacrifice fear itself. Chapter 11. Magnus' public statement sent shockwaves through both packs. Standing at the border with Aria at his side, the Ironpaw Alpha announced he was withdrawing his demands and pledging support to Silvercrest instead. He spoke of recognizing the Silver Wolf's wisdom, of seeing the merit in alliance over conflict, of choosing a new path forward. He didn't mention his daughter. That remained their secret weapon. The Silvercrest pack's reaction was mixed. Relief that war was averted, confusion about the sudden reversal, and suspicion that something wasn't being said. But for Aria, it bought precious time. Time she desperately needed, because tomorrow night was the full moon, the night of the final trial, the trial of vision, and the night of her Luna ceremony if she passed. Tell me everything you know about the trial of vision, Aria said to Elder Sophia that evening. They sat in the Elder's quarters, a cozy space filled with herbs, ancient texts, and the weight of centuries. Sophia poured tea with hands that trembled only slightly. The trial of vision is the most sacred and the most dangerous. You'll drink a ceremonial tea that will send your consciousness into the ancestral realm, a place where the spirits of all past Silvercrest wolves exist. There, you'll walk through our history, witness our triumphs and failures, and face the question every Luna must answer. What question? That's different for each Luna. The ancestors will show you what you need to see. Ask what you need to answer. Sophia's ancient eyes were grave. But Aria, you must understand, some wolves don't come back from the vision. They become lost in the ancestral realm, trapped between past and present. Their bodies live on, but their minds never return. How many Lunas have been lost? In 300 years. 4. Sophia sipped her tea. The risk is real, but so is the reward. Lunas who complete the trial of vision emerge with wisdom beyond their years, with connection to every Alpha and Luna who came before. They lead not just with their own knowledge, but with the accumulated experience of generations. Aria absorbed this, her wolf stirring restlessly. When does the trial begin? At moonrise tomorrow. You'll drink the tea in the ceremonial arena before the entire pack. Then your body will remain there, guarded, while your spirit walks with the ancestors. Sophia's expression softened. Your mate cannot follow you. No one can. This journey is yours alone. I understand. Do you? Sophia leaned forward. Because there's something else you should know. The ancestral realm reflects truth. It strips away all pretense, all masks, all lies we tell ourselves. You'll see yourself as you truly are. And sometimes that truth is harder to face than any external enemy. That night, Aria couldn't sleep. She lay in Marcus's arms, listening to his heartbeat, memorizing the feel of him in case the trial went wrong. Stop thinking about worst-case scenarios, Marcus murmured. I can feel your fear through the bond. I can't help it. What if I don't come back? You will. His arms tightened around her. You're the strongest person I know, Aria. You've survived everything thrown at you. You'll survive this too. But if I don't? Marcus silenced her with a kiss, deep and claiming. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. If you don't come back, I'll walk into that ancestral realm myself and drag you out. Bondmate privileges. The ancestors can try to stop me. Despite her fear, Aria smiled. Pretty sure that's not how it works. I'll make it work. He pressed his forehead to hers. I didn't wait my entire life for my mate just to lose her to a vision quest. Come back to me, Aria. That's an order from your Alpha. Yes, Alpha, she whispered and kissed him again. They made love that night with desperate intensity, the mate bond blazing between them. Two souls merged into one. And when Aria finally slept, she dreamed of silver wolves and moonlit ceremonies, and a destiny she was terrified to claim. Moonrise came too quickly. The ceremonial arena was packed. Every member of Silvercrest gathered to witness the final trial. Torches blazed against the darkness, and in the center of the space, a simple altar held a clay cup filled with dark liquid. The ancestral tea. Aria wore traditional Luna ceremonial dress. White leather decorated with silver thread, her hair unbound and flowing, her feet bare against the cold stone. Marcus stood beside her in Alpha regalia, his presence a comfort and an anchor. The council sat in judgment seats. Her father was there, his expression unreadable. Devon stood with the warriors. And scattered throughout the crowd, Aria saw faces that had mocked her, doubted her, dismissed her. Tonight, she'd prove them wrong one final time. Or die trying. Elder Sophia approached the altar, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. The trial of vision is the most sacred test a Luna must face. Aria Winters, are you prepared to walk with the ancestors, to see the truth of our pack's past and future, to face yourself without masks or illusions? I am, Aria said, her voice steady. Then drink, and let the ancestors judge your spirit. Aria lifted the clay cup. The liquid inside smelled like earth and smoke and something ancient beyond naming. She met Marcus's eyes one last time, drew strength from the mate bond, and drank. The taste was bitter, overwhelming. The world tilted, and Aria felt herself falling. Not physically, but spiritually, her consciousness separating from her body and plunging into darkness. Then light. She stood in a forest that was and wasn't the Silvercrest territory. The trees were the same, but older, younger, different and identical all at once. Time here was fluid, layered, all moments existing simultaneously. And she wasn't alone. Wolves surrounded her. Hundreds of them, thousands, all the Silvercrest pack members who'd lived and died over centuries. They watched her with glowing eyes, some curious, some skeptical, some welcoming. The silver wolf has come, a voice whispered through the assembled spirits. After 300 years, she walks with us again. A figure emerged from the crowd of spirits, a woman with silver hair like Aria's, eyes like amethysts, power radiating from her like heat from a fire. Lyra Moonshadow, the last silver wolf. "Hello, daughter," Lyra said, though they shared no blood. "In the world of spirits, all silver wolves were kin. I've been waiting for you. Everyone keeps telling me about the prophecy," Aria said. "About how I'm supposed to change everything. But no one tells me how." Lyra smiled. "Because that's not my story to tell. It's yours. I can only show you what was. You must discover what will be." She gestured, and the forest around them shifted. Suddenly Aria was watching history unfold like a living tapestry. She saw Lyra unite the 7 warring packs, not through conquest, but through understanding. She saw the silver wolf sit in council with alphas who towered over her, and somehow make them listen. She saw change ripple outward from one small wolf until entire territories were transformed. But she also saw the cost, the loneliness of being different, the constant challenges, the wolves who resented her, who plotted against her, who would rather see everything burn than accept her vision. "They killed you," Aria realized, watching the final scene unfold. Lyra, betrayed by wolves she'd trusted, dying in a forest clearing. "Your own pack. Not my pack." Wolves who never truly accepted change. Lyra's spirit was serene despite the brutal death. "They feared what I represented. Feared that if I succeeded, their old power structures would crumble. So they removed me. And you let them? I fought. I lost. But my legacy survived." Lyra turned to face Aria fully. "The prophecy wasn't about me, Aria. It was about you. I was the first attempt, the proof of concept. You're the fulfillment. The silver wolf who'll actually succeed where I failed. How can you be sure I won't fail too? Because you have something I didn't." Lyra smiled. "A mate bond with an alpha who truly understands partnership. I walked alone. You'll walk with Marcus at your side. That makes all the difference." The forest shifted again, and Aria saw other Lunas, women who'd led Silvercrest through triumph and tragedy. She saw their victories and their failures, their wisdom and their mistakes. She felt their experiences flow into her, becoming part of her own understanding. And then the vision stopped. Aria stood alone in a clearing, and before her materialized a mirror, not of glass, but of pure silver light. Her reflection stared back, but it wasn't the Aria she knew. This Aria was both more and less than she'd imagined. She saw her own fear, her insecurities, her moments of doubt and weakness. But she also saw her strength, the courage that had carried her through Omega days, the wisdom that had seen through Damien's trap, the fierce love that made her willing to face anything for her pack. "Who are you?" a voice asked, not Lyra's but something older, the voice of the ancestral realm itself. "I'm Aria Winters," she said, "Luna of Silvercrest, mate to Marcus Blackwood, the Silver Wolf." "Those are titles. Names. Roles. Who are you?" Aria looked deeper into the mirror, past the surface to the truth beneath. And she finally understood what the trial was really testing. "I'm someone who was broken and rebuilt myself," Aria said quietly. "Someone who knows what it means to be cast aside and chose to rise anyway. I'm strong not because I never fall, but because I always get back up. I'm wise not because I have all the answers, but because I'm willing to admit when I don't. And I'm worthy of being Luna not despite my past, but because of it." The mirror shimmered, and her reflection smiled. "Truth spoken. But one more question remains. What will you sacrifice to lead your pack into the future?" "Nothing," Aria said firmly. "I've learned that true leadership doesn't require sacrifice, it requires balance. I won't sacrifice my mate bond for the pack, because a Luna who loses herself can't lead others. I won't sacrifice the weak to protect the strong, because a pack is only as solid as its foundation. I won't sacrifice truth for comfort, or justice for convenience, or change for safety." "Then what will you give?" "Everything. My strength, my wisdom, my courage, my love. Everything I am and everything I'll become. But I'll give it freely, not as sacrifice. As service." The mirror exploded into light, and Aria felt power rush into her. Not new power, but the awakening of abilities that had always been there. The accumulated wisdom of every Luna before her, the strength of generations, the vision to see not just what is but what could be. She was the Silver Wolf. She always had been. Now she finally knew what that meant. "Go," the ancestral voice commanded. "Return to your body. Lead your pack. Fulfill the prophecy." The forest dissolved, and Aria felt herself rushing back toward consciousness. she gasped, her eyes flying open. She was lying in the center of the ceremonial arena, Marcus cradling her head in his lap, tears streaming down his face. The moon was directly overhead, marking midnight. She'd been in the vision for hours. "Aria," Marcus breathed, relief flooding through the mate bond. "Thank the goddess. You were gone so long, I thought." "I'm here." She sat up slowly, her body stiff but her mind crystal clear. "I'm back. And Marcus, I saw everything. I understand now." The crowd erupted in cheers. Aria had passed the final trial. She was officially Luna of Silvercrest. But as the celebration began, Aria noticed something. At the edge of the arena, Devon stood with his warriors, and one of them, a female enforcer named Claire, was backing away slowly, her face pale with guilt. Aria's new abilities, still fresh and raw, suddenly flared. She felt Claire's emotions like a beacon: fear, shame, and desperate calculation. And underneath it all, knowledge. Knowledge about Magnus' daughter. "Found you," Aria thought grimly. "Devon," Aria called out, her voice carrying authority that silenced the crowd. "Detain Claire. She has information about a kidnapping." Claire bolted, but Aria was faster. She shifted mid-leap, her silver wolf form blazing in the moonlight. She caught Claire before the enforcer made it 10 feet, pinning her to the ground with strength enhanced by her newfound connection to generations of Lunas. "Where is she?" Aria growled, shifting just her voice to human speech while maintaining her wolf form, a trick she'd learned from the ancestors. "Where's Magnus' daughter?" Claire struggled, then went limp. "The old mine. North Territory. But you're too late. He's moving her tonight. He knows you're getting close." "Who is he?" Claire's eyes flickered to the council seats, and Aria's blood ran cold. "Not just Damien. Someone higher. Someone on the council itself." Elder Thomas spoke before Claire could answer. "Enough. Claire, you're under arrest for conspiracy and kidnapping. Devon, take her to holding." His voice was hard, controlled, but through her empathic abilities, Aria felt his turmoil. He knew something, but was he involved, or just protecting someone? There was no time to figure it out now. If Magnus' daughter was being moved tonight, they had to act immediately. "Marcus," Aria said, shifting back to human form and ignoring her ceremonial dress torn from the transformation. "We need to mobilize. Now. The old mine in North Territory. That's where they're holding the hostage." Marcus was already moving, calling orders. "Devon, assemble a strike team. 20 warriors, fastest we have. Elder Sophia, alert Magnus. We'll need Ironpaw support. Move." The celebration turned into organized chaos as warriors scrambled to prepare. Aria ran to change into combat gear, her mind racing. The old mine was abandoned, dangerous, perfect for hiding someone. But it was also a trap. Whoever orchestrated this knew they'd figured it out eventually. They'd be ready. As she emerged in fighting leathers, Marcus caught her arm. "You don't have to come. You just completed the trial of vision. You should rest." "I'm coming." Aria's eyes flashed violet. "This conspiracy has been targeting me from the beginning. I want to face whoever's behind it. Then we face them together." Marcus kissed her hard. "But Aria, be careful. Something about this feels wrong. Everything about this has felt wrong from the start." Aria checked the knives at her belt. Time to make it right. The old mine sat at the northern edge of Silvercrest territory, a relic from decades past when humans had tried and failed to extract silver from the mountain. The entrance gaped like a wound in the hillside, dark and forbidding. Aria approached with Marcus and 20 warriors, while Magnus and his Ironpaw fighters covered the rear exit. The plan was simple. Fast entry, secure the hostage, capture or eliminate anyone guarding her. But as they reached the mine entrance, Aria's empathic sense screamed warning. "Wait," she hissed. "Something's." The explosion ripped through the night. Not at the mine entrance, but behind them, back at the pack house. A massive fireball lit the sky, and through the mate bond, Aria felt Marcus's horror as he realized what had happened. "The pack house," Marcus breathed. "They've attacked the pack house." It was a diversion. The mine was bait. The real attack was happening at home, where most of the pack was undefended, celebrating Aria's Luna ceremony. "Go," Aria said immediately. "Take the warriors back. Protect the pack. I'm not leaving you. You have to. You're Alpha. They need you." Aria gripped his arms. "I'll get Magnus' daughter with the Ironpaw warriors. You save our pack. Go." Marcus hesitated for one agonized second, then kissed her fiercely. "Don't die." That's an order. Yes, Alpha. He shifted and ran, the Silvercrest warriors streaming behind him. Aria watched them disappear into the forest, then turned to Magnus and his fighters. Your daughter's still in there, Aria said. And whoever set that explosion wants us to abandon the rescue. Which means we're going in. Now, Magnus nodded grimly. My warriors are yours to command, Luna. Aria felt the weight of that trust, and Alpha deferring to her judgment. She closed her eyes briefly, reaching out with her empathic sense, feeling for life inside the mine. There, deep in the tunnels, she felt fear, pain, and stubborn determination. Magnus' daughter was alive, and guarding her. 3 signatures. No 4. One felt different from the others. Older, more controlled. More dangerous. 4 hostiles inside, Aria reported. Plus your daughter. They'll expect us to rush in panicked. So we go slow, careful, and we use the darkness to our advantage. She divided the Ironpaw warriors into 2 teams. One would enter through the main shaft, the other would circle to the ventilation tunnels. Aria would go with Magnus through the main entrance. The mine swallowed them in darkness. Aria's wolf vision adjusted quickly, seeing in the dim light that would blind humans. The tunnels branched in a maze of passages, but her empathic sense guided her like a compass, following the emotional signatures deeper into the mountain. They moved in silence, communication reduced to hand signals, and the pack link Magnus extended to include her temporarily. The tunnel walls wept moisture, and the air smelled of earth and decay. Movement ahead, Magnus' voice touched her mind. 2 guards, armed with silver weapons. Silver, the one metal that could truly harm wolves, that prevented healing, that burned like acid. Whoever planned this knew exactly what they were doing. Aria gestured for the warriors to hold position. She crept forward alone, using her smaller size to stay hidden in the shadows. Through the darkness, she saw them. 2 enforcers she recognized from Silvercrest. More traitors. More wolves who'd chosen conspiracy over pack loyalty. She could take them by force. Or, Aria reached out with her empathic abilities, the power stronger now after the trial of vision. She felt their emotional states, nervous, jumpy, uncertain. They didn't want to be here. They'd been coerced, threatened, forced into this position. She pushed gently against their minds, not controlling but influencing, projecting calm, safety, the certainty that they could walk away, that surrender was an option, that they didn't have to die for someone else's ambitions. One guard lowered his weapon slowly, confusion crossing his face. The other followed. They looked at each other, some unspoken agreement passing between them, and simply walked away. Deeper into the mine, away from their post. Magnus appeared at Aria's shoulder, his eyes wide. How did you do that? Silver wolf abilities, Aria murmured. I'm still figuring them out. Come on, the hostage is close. They moved past the abandoned guard post, following the tunnel as it descended deeper. And then they emerged into a larger chamber, an old mining hub where multiple tunnels converged. In the center of the space, tied to a support beam, was a young woman with Magnus copper. Hair and fierce eyes. She was bruised, exhausted, but alive. Relief flooded Magnus' face. Kira, he breathed. But between them and Kira stood the 4th signature Aria had sensed. And when he stepped into the dim light of a battery-powered lantern, Aria's blood turned to ice. Elder Thomas. Her father. Hello, Aria, Thomas said calmly. I was hoping it would be you who came. We have much to discuss. Dad. Aria's voice cracked. You're behind this? All of it. Not behind it. Just part of it. Thomas's expression was pained but resolute. I didn't want it to come to this. But the Silver Wolf prophecy threatens everything we've built. Everything that keeps packs safe and stable. By kidnapping innocent wolves? By setting off explosions. Aria felt her wolf rising, fury and betrayal warring in her chest. How is any of this keeping us safe? Because change is dangerous. Thomas's calm facade cracked. You don't understand. I've seen what happens when old hierarchies fall. Chaos. Packs tearing themselves apart. The strong preying on the weak without structure to prevent it. The prophecy speaks of transformation, but transformation kills as often as it saves. So you decided to kill it first, Magnus growled, his eyes on his captive daughter. By destroying the Silver Wolf before she could fulfill her destiny. I decided to test her. Thomas met Aria's eyes. Every trial, every challenge, every impossible choice, I designed them all. Not Damien, though he was a useful pawn. Me. I needed to know if you were strong enough, wise enough, different enough to actually succeed where Lyra failed. And the verdict? Aria asked coldly. You passed. Thomas's voice was heavy with regret. Every test, you found solutions I didn't anticipate. You turned weakness into strength, saw through deception, refused manipulation. You're exactly what the prophecy promised. He paused. Which means I can't let you leave this mine. The threat hung in the air. Magnus' warriors tensed, but Thomas raised his hand and wolves emerged from the other tunnels. At least a dozen, all wearing expressions of grim determination. This was his contingency plan, his final test. Kill your own daughter? Aria said. For what? Preserving a system that cast me out, that crushed anyone who didn't fit its narrow definition of worthy. For order, for stability, for all the wolves who thrive under the current system and would suffer under your new vision. Thomas drew a silver knife from his belt. I'm sorry, Aria. Truly. But I'll kill you if I must. Better one death than the chaos that'll follow if you live. Aria felt the weight of the moment. Her father, the man who'd raised her, who'd struggled with shame over her wolflessness, who'd finally shown pride in her accomplishments, was willing to murder her for an ideology. The tragedy of it was overwhelming. But she wasn't the broken Omega anymore. She was Luna. She was the Silver Wolf. And she'd be damned if she let fear win. You're right about one thing, Aria said, her voice ringing with authority. Change is dangerous. Transformation is painful. The old ways will fall, and it will be chaotic and messy and hard. She stepped forward, unafraid of the blade. But Dad, the old ways are already falling. They've been falling for decades. You've just been too afraid to admit it. Aria, Damien betrayed the pack because the hierarchy taught him to value dominance over loyalty. Warriors mock the weak because the system rewards cruelty. Talented wolves are wasted in Omega positions because accidents of birth matter more than character. Aria's eyes blazed violet. The system you're trying to preserve is already broken. I'm not destroying it. I'm just refusing to pretend it still works. Thomas's hand wavered, the knife trembling. Through her empathic sense, Aria felt his internal war. Love for his daughter against fear of the unknown, personal feeling against ideological conviction. You don't have to do this, Aria said softly. Put down the knife, Dad. Let Kira go. Help me build something better instead of defending something that's already dead. And if the new system fails, if your vision leads to disaster, then we'll fail together and figure out what comes next. But at least we'll have tried. Aria extended her hand. Please, Dad. Choose family over fear. Choose hope over tradition. Choose me. The silence stretched, broken only by water dripping somewhere in the darkness. Thomas stared at her extended hand, and Aria felt the moment he made his choice. The knife clattered to the stone floor. I'm sorry, Thomas whispered, tears streaming down his weathered face. Aria, I'm so sorry. For everything. For not defending you, for testing you so brutally, for almost... His voice broke. You're my daughter. And you're right. I've been so afraid of change I couldn't see what it was costing us. Aria stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him, feeling his body shake with sobs. I forgive you, she said. But this ends now. All of it. No more conspiracies. No more tests. Just truth. The other wolves, Thomas's contingency plan, lowered their weapons. Without their leader's conviction, they had no will to fight. Some looked relieved. Others ashamed. But none moved to attack. Magnus rushed past them to his daughter, cutting her bonds. Kira collapsed into her father's arms, and the Ironpaw Alpha held her like he'd never let go. We need to get back, Aria said, pulling away from Thomas. The pack house. A howl split the night, Marcus's voice, amplified by alpha power, calling for help. Aria's heart seized. Through the mate bond, she felt his pain, his desperation, his fear. The attack on the pack house was worse than they'd thought. Go, Thomas said. I'll secure these tunnels, make sure no one else is hiding here. Go save our pack, Luna. Aria shifted and ran, Magnus and his warriors behind her, racing through tunnels and out into the night. The sky above the pack house glowed orange, not from one explosion, but from sustained fire. Someone was burning their home. She pushed herself faster, her silver wolf form blazing through the darkness like a comet. She'd passed every trial, survived every test, claimed her position as Luna. Now she'd prove she deserved it. Chapter 12. The pack house was an inferno. Aria burst from the forest to find chaos. Flames consuming the east wing, Wolves in both human and animal form, fighting a desperate defense against attackers who seemed to come from everywhere. But these weren't rogues. They wore organized military gear, moved with tactical precision, and carried weapons specifically designed to kill supernatural creatures. Hunters. Human hunters, the ancient enemy of all wolf kind, had somehow found Silvercrest and launched a coordinated assault while the pack was divided and vulnerable. Aria spotted Marcus immediately, his enormous black wolf form defending the main entrance, blood matting his fur, exhaustion clear in every movement. Through the mate bond, she felt his relief at her return, quickly followed by fear. "Aria, stay back. There are too many." "I'm Luna," she shot back through the bond. "I don't stay back." She charged into the battle, Magnus and the Ironpaw warriors flanking her. The hunters turned, shocked by the sudden reinforcement, and even more shocked by the silver wolf leading them. Aria didn't fight like the other wolves. She fought smarter. Her empathic abilities let her sense the hunters' intentions before they moved, let her predict their strategies, let her identify their leaders. And her newfound connection to generations of Lunas gave her tactical knowledge she shouldn't possess. She targeted the hunter commander first, a scarred man barking orders from behind the front lines. She hit him like a silver missile, her teeth finding his shoulder, disarming him before he could fire the specialized rifle aimed at Marcus's back. The commander went down, and his squad's coordination shattered. "Devon," Aria called through the pack link, her voice ringing clear now that she was fully Luna. "East Wing, get the families out. Magnus, your warriors take the north flank. Silvercrest defenders, rally to Marcus at the main entrance." Her commands were instantly obeyed. She felt the pack link strengthen, felt every Silvercrest wolf connected to her now. Luna and pack, two-way communication, shared purpose. This was what she'd been meant for. The battle shifted. Organized defenders replaced panicked chaos. The hunters found themselves facing not a scattered group of wolves, but a coordinated pack fighting with unified purpose. And at the center of it all, a silver wolf blazed like a beacon. Visible to friend and foe alike, impossible to ignore, a symbol of everything the prophecy had promised. But the hunters weren't finished. A second wave emerged from the forest, more fighters, more weapons, and leading them, Aria's blood froze. The woman was human but radiated power of a different kind. The cold certainty of a fanatic, the absolute conviction of someone who believed themselves righteous. She wore tactical gear adorned with religious symbols, and in her hands she carried a weapon Aria had only heard about in stories. A silver spear blessed by ancient rituals, capable of killing even an alpha with a single strike. "The silver wolf," the woman called out, her voice carrying across the battlefield. "The abomination the prophecies warned about. I am Magdalene Cross, High Warden of the Hunter's Covenant, and I've come to end your blasphemous existence." She threw the spear. Time seemed to slow. Aria saw the weapon spinning through the air, saw the blessed silver glinting in the firelight, saw the trajectory that would take it straight through her heart. She couldn't dodge. Too many pack members behind her. If she moved, the spear would kill someone else. "Aria, no." Marcus's mental scream echoed through the bond. Aria didn't move. But she didn't have to. Power exploded from her, not physical but spiritual. The accumulated strength of every Luna who'd come before, the authority of the silver wolf, the sheer force of will that said no to death and yes to survival. The spear stopped midair. It hung there, 3 feet from Aria's chest, vibrating with tension as two forces warred. The hunter's blessed weapon against the Luna's indomitable will. The battlefield went silent, every fighter frozen, watching the impossible. Aria stepped forward. The spear trembled but held. She took another step, then another, walking toward Magdalene Cross while the weapon meant to kill her hovered uselessly in the air between them. "You came to end me," Aria said, her voice somehow carrying despite not shouting. "But you can't end an idea. You can't kill change. You can't murder hope." She reached the spear and closed her hand around it. Silver burned her palm. She felt it searing her flesh, but she didn't let go. Through the pain, she met Magdalene's horrified eyes. "The old ways are dying," Aria continued. "The systems that kept humans and wolves separated, that kept packs weak and divided, that valued tradition over survival. You can kill me, Warden Cross, but you can't stop what I represent. The silver wolf has risen, and the world will never be the same." With strength she didn't know she possessed, Aria snapped the blessed spear in half. The crack echoed like thunder. Magdalene stumbled backward, her face pale with shock. And behind her, Aria felt it, the hunter's resolve breaking. They'd been told the silver wolf was a monster to be destroyed. Instead, they saw a leader willing to burn her own hand to protect her pack. They saw courage, not corruption. Purpose, not evil. "Retreat," Magdalene whispered. Then louder. "Hunters, retreat." They fled into the forest, dragging their wounded, leaving their dead. The warden cast one last look at Aria. Not hatred, but confusion and something like respect. Then vanished into the darkness. The moment they were gone, Aria collapsed. Her hand was ruined, silver burns eating deep into flesh. Poison was spreading up her arm, the blessed nature of the weapon making the damage far worse than normal silver. Through the mate bond, she felt Marcus's terror as he reached her side, shifting back to human form. "Aria, stay with me." He cradled her, his hands hovering over her burns, unable to help. "Someone get the pack healer." "Now, I'm okay," Aria managed, though the pain was excruciating. "The pack is everyone. Safe. Thanks to you." Marcus's voice cracked. "But you're not okay. Blessed silver poisoning. Aria, there's no cure. It'll spread until my wolf heals it." Aria closed her eyes, reaching deep inside herself. Her wolf rose up, stronger than ever, and with her came the power of every Luna before her. Ancient knowledge, old magic, the accumulated healing ability of generations. She poured it into her ruined hand. The crowd gasped. Her flesh began to regenerate, impossibly fast, pushing out the silver poison and knitting back together. It hurt worse than the initial burn, like her body was tearing itself apart and rebuilding. But within minutes, her hand was whole again. She'd just done something no wolf should be able to do. Healed blessed silver damage. "Impossible," Elder Sophia breathed, kneeling beside her. "Even Lyra couldn't do that." "Lyra was the first silver wolf," Aria said, sitting up with Marcus's help. "I'm the fulfillment of the prophecy. I don't have to follow the same rules." She stood, surveying the damage. The east wing of the pack house was destroyed, but the main structure held. Wounded wolves were being tended by healers. Families emerged from shelters, shaken but alive. And standing among the defenders, Silvercrest and Ironpaw warriors together, she saw the future taking shape. Two packs united. Old enemies, now allies. Change happening in real time. Thomas approached, his face streaked with ash and tears. "I almost destroyed this. Almost destroyed you. But you saved us anyway." "That's what Luna does," Aria said simply. "She protects her pack, even the ones who doubted her." Devon limped up, his arm in a makeshift sling, but his eyes bright. "Luna, casualty report. 3 dead, 17 wounded, but everyone else accounted for. The families are safe. And Luna, we held. Against hunters, against overwhelming odds, we held. Because you're Silvercrest," Aria said. "You were always this strong. You just needed to remember it." Marcus pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. Walking toward a blessed spear. Aria, you could have died. But I didn't. And now every wolf here knows. The silver wolf doesn't back down. Not from hunters, not from prophecy, not from destiny." She kissed him softly. "I'm done running, Marcus. Done doubting. I am Luna of Silvercrest, and I'm claiming it." The pack erupted in howls, not of mourning but of triumph. They'd survived the final test. And their Luna had proven herself beyond any doubt. 3 days later, under the full moon, the official Luna ceremony finally took place. The pack had worked around the clock to rebuild, to heal, to prepare. The ceremonial arena was decorated with silver ribbons and moonflowers, with torches blazing against the night sky. Every Silvercrest wolf attended, along with delegations from neighboring packs who'd heard of the silver wolf's rise. Aria wore traditional Luna regalia, white leather and silver thread, her hair bound with moonstone, her hand bearing the faint scars of her battle with the blessed spear. She stood before the assembled packs, Marcus at her side, and felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. Elder Sophia conducted the ceremony, her ancient voice ringing with power. "We gather under the full moon to formally recognize what the goddess has already ordained. Aria Winters, you have passed the 4 trials. You have proven your strength in combat, your wisdom in judgment, your sacrifice for the greater good, and your vision through the ancestral realm. Do you accept the position of Luna of Silvercrest? I do, Aria said clearly. Do you swear to lead with courage, to protect the weak, to challenge the unjust, and to guide this pack into a future worthy of their legacy? I swear it. Then by the power granted to me as Elder of Silvercrest, by the witness of these assembled packs, and by the blessing of the moon goddess herself. Sophia placed a circlet of silver on Aria's head. I name you Luna Aria Blackwood, true mate to Alpha Marcus, leader of Silvercrest and fulfillment of the Silver Wolf prophecy. May your reign be long and your vision clear. The pack howled their acceptance, the sound rising to the moon like a prayer. Marcus took her hand, and together they shifted. His black wolf and her silver standing side by side, Alpha and Luna, partners in truth. Through the pack link, Aria felt every Silvercrest wolf's presence like stars in her consciousness. She was connected to all of them now, responsible for all of them, bound to all of them. It was overwhelming and perfect. This is what I was meant for, she thought. And her wolf, finally fully awake after 21 years, agreed with pure contentment. Yes. Epilogue. 6 months later, Aria stood on the ridge overlooking Silvercrest territory and marveled at how much had changed. The pack house had been rebuilt, larger and more open than before. Designed to welcome visitors from other packs, to foster alliance rather than isolation. The Omega system had been abolished. Now all wolves served based on ability and choice rather than birth circumstances. Training was open to everyone, and 3 former Omegas had already been promoted to warrior status. The regional council had tried to challenge Silvercrest's reforms, but when 5 other packs, inspired by the Silver Wolf's example, had adopted similar changes, the old guard's resistance had crumbled. Change was spreading, exactly as the prophecy promised. Magnus and Ironpaw had become their strongest allies. Kira, recovered from her ordeal, was training as an ambassador between packs. And Thomas, her father, had stepped down from the council but remained as an advisor, working to help other wolves overcome their fear of transformation. You look thoughtful, Marcus said, appearing beside her. Even after 6 months, her heart still raced when he was near, the mate bond burning bright and strong. Just remembering, Aria said. A year ago, I was Omega, broken, powerless, invisible. Now you're the most influential Luna in 5 territories, architect of a social revolution, and according to the latest intelligence, the target of at least 3 assassination plots from traditionalist factions. Marcus grinned. Quite the promotion. I should put that on my resume. Don't forget survived blessed silver spear and has really terrible taste in mates. Aria laughed and elbowed him. My taste in mates is excellent, thank you. Is it? Marcus pulled her close. Because your mate is thinking about making you Luna of an even larger territory. Nightshade and Crimson Peak want to formalize a tri-pack alliance. We'd be essentially governing 3 territories as one. Unprecedented in modern pack history. That's insane. So is a silver wolf leading a pack revolution. Marcus kissed her temple. But we've done impossible before. We can do it again. Aria looked out over the territory. Her pack, her responsibility, and her joy. Somewhere down there, wolves who'd been cast aside were finding new purpose. Alliances were being forged. Change was happening, one small victory at a time. Yes, she said. We can. Together. As the sun set over Silvercrest, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Aria Blackwood. The outcast who became Luna, the Omega who became legend, the silver wolf who fulfilled prophecy smiled. Her story had just begun. The end.